Part 1. Archi. The Battle at Suna. Prologue. 4x. Desert, outside Sanagakure, Wind Country. The sun was setting. A flash of blue sped along the sands. Upon that figure in blue was the green vest of a Jonin. Upon his forehead sat a headband protector, arranged in a way that hid his left eye. Upon that headband was the symbol of Konohagakure, the village hidden in the leaves. Finally, a mass of spiky silver hair sat upon his head, pointing toward his left side. It was Hitaki Kakashi, the copy ninja, and he was running as fast as he could towards Sanagakure, the village hidden in the sand. When the great battle in Konoha had ended, he had immediately hightailed it to Sanagakure. After all, it was Tamari and Konkuro that had notified the Leaf of the incident in the Wind Country. That had been 3 days ago. Kakashi scowled, his face covered from the nose down by his blue uniform. He still couldn't believe what had happened. Akatsuki. They made their move. Akatsuki, the criminal organization headed by 9 S-class criminals. And they had lured Naruto to the Wind Country. After all, they possessed Gaara of the desert, the Cage. The host of Shukaku, the demon Tanuki. Kakashi knew that was motivation enough for Naruto to go to them. But why? Why had Naruto gone? Didn't he know that was what Akatsuki wanted? Kakashi's frown deepened as he quickly neared the outskirts of Sanagakure. Soon, the village would be in his sight. Why did Naruto go? Did he sincerely think his 3 years of training with Jiraiya had been enough? Even if only one of the 3 legendary Leafs could take on a member or 2 of Akatsuki, no one would be able to hold their own against all 9. It had been a clever distraction on Akatsuki's part. Naruto had left Konoha late in the night, and by the time anyone had gotten wind of his departure, the Leaf had found itself under attack by 100 Nukenin hired by Akatsuki. However, they had been no mere Nukenin. Although they were renegades, they were skilled renegades. 64 of them had been of the Chunin level, while the 36 that remained were of the Jonin level. The battle had been monstrous. Even Tsunade, the 5th Hokage, had been forced to partake in the fighting. Of course, things had gotten even worse when Chunin and Jonin from the Sound had appeared, and they immediately engaged both the Leaf's ninja and Akatsuki's Nukenin. That had meant only one thing. Orochimaru, grimly thought Kakashi. Why had Orochimaru gotten involved? It was known he was no longer a part of Akatsuki, but what had possessed the former Leaf ninja to send Sound ninja to Konoha? Especially when he had not even led the charge against the Leaf. That could only mean that he had gone to where Akatsuki was as well. But why? Why would Orochimaru go to Akatsuki even though there was clearly some bad blood between them? Sanagakure was in sight. My questions will have to wait. I have to find out what's happened. As Kakashi neared Sanagakure, he suddenly saw something else. A gigantic coliseum made of hardened sand. Kakashi's eye narrowed. No doubt Gaara had constructed that. But did that mean he had escaped? Or that Akatsuki had managed to utilize his powers somehow? He didn't want to think about the latter. Either way, knew that Naruto, dead or alive, was inside that coliseum. He quickly changed his direction and ran towards the monument of hardened sand. As Kakashi neared the coliseum, he saw a large figure leaning against its outer wall. To his shock, it was none other than Jiraiya. Jiraiya's red and green robes were stained with blood, the result of a large wound on the left shoulder. His horned forehead protector was cracked and on the verge of crumbling into pieces. His long, unkempt mane of white hair was also stained with blood. He quietly raised his head, revealing dark eyes filled with weariness. The legendary Sannin chuckled quietly at the sight of Kakashi. Hey! Kakashi of the Sharingan. I take it the Nukenin have been dealt with? Kakashi nodded. Jiraiya had left Konoha to find Naruto. Even though the village had been under heavy attack, the Toad Sennin had left the village. It showed how valuable Naruto was. After all, he had the 9-tailed demon fox sealed within him. Or perhaps it was because the master cared for his apprentice. Yes, but we were also attacked by the Sound. This caused Jiraiya to raise an eyebrow out of surprise. Just as soon, however, he chuckled. I see. That isn't so surprising now. After all, Orochimaru and his assistant Kabuto came. Orochimaru is the one who gave me this wound. As I thought Kakashi with a frown. Orochimaru had come, but that didn't answer the question as to why. But why? What business does he have with Akatsuki? He has no business with Akatsuki. But his business was with the one person that came here, replied Jiraiya, slightly grinning as he clutched his wowed Ned's shoulder. Ga. I had come to assist Naruto. I even summoned Gamabunta, but to think I was caught from behind by surprise. Pardon me, interrupted Kakashi. But what person are you referring to? This brought a smile to the Sannin's face. Heh, isn't it obvious? He paused to glance back at the Sharingan user. I am referring to the other male of Team 7. This caused Kakashi's eye to widen. You can't mean Uchiha Sasuke, interrupted Jiraiya. He came here on his own, freed Gaara, then he attacked Itachi. Jiraiya grunted as he readjusted his position. Soon after that, Orochimaru showed up to reclaim his runaway prize. Soon after I got injured, Gaara created this coliseum of sand and used his chakra to harden it. I don't know of anything else after that. Kakashi frowned. None of this makes any sense. Sasuke shows up and frees Gaara from Akatsuki. How did he escape from Orochimaru? Why did he escape from Orochimaru? Without saying anything, he reached into one of his vest's pockets and pulled out the only first aid equipment he carried, medical bandages and antibiotic ointment. Here, Jiraiya was silent as Kakashi handed him the materials before scaling the wall of sand. The legendary Sannin frowned as he glanced down at his wound. He thought of Naruto. Then he grumbled. That no talent bum. He'd better have lived. As Kakashi scaled the wall, his thoughts were in a frenzy. Why had Sasuke shown up out of the blue? To fight Itachi, of course. Why had he freed Gaara? No answer. Why had he escaped Orochimaru? Has he changed? Was the Kazekage injured? No answer. Was Naruto injured or worse? I hope not. He stepped onto the top of the Colosseum's wall. And he literally gasped. What is this? The inside of the Colosseum was basically a desert that surrounded a sheet of black obsidian. Akatsuki had obviously brought the sheet here for some purpose. Kakashi could see a seal marked upon the obsidian in red dye. It was immensely complex, and in the center of the seal were two symbols in the shape of rectangles, and they were as big as a human. However, Kakashi's attention was more focused on everything else. 10 corpses were lying throughout the Colosseum at various spots. Kakashi quietly shifted his headband, revealing his right eye, the Sharingan. He gazed at the corpses one by one, using his Sharingan to determine how they had died. One corpse was that of Hoshigaki Kisame, the wielder of Samahata. Speaking of Samahata, the blade was broken in half, lying by his side. His black cloak, lined with the red clouds of the Akatsuki members, was in tatters, and his mouth was open out of shock. His light blue skin was pale, and his normally beady yellow eyes were wide with shock. If I'm correct, a powerful genjutsu technique was used. It looks like he died out of fright. The next corpse was of a woman. Her white hair was tied into a ponytail, but it was almost burnt off. Her entire body, cloak and all, was burnt. Near her chest and abdomen, her clothing was completely burned away, revealing horrible wounds. Around her body sat pieces of gray clay. She looks like the woman Kankuro and Tamari said captured Gaara. They said she used explosive clay, and from the looks of her wounds, her own explosive clay was turned against her. The third corpse was that of a man. His head was bald, save for a few strands of dark hair. What shocked Kakashi was the sight of a wooden scorpion tail protruding from the bottom of his spinal cord, and protruding from other parts of his body were wooden appendages that had various knives and daggers protruding from them. As for the aforementioned tail, it lay beside him, its tip covered in red blood. The man's neck had a hole in it, probably from the tail. He uses Kugutsu no Jutsu, like Kankuro, except his puppets have been surgically grafted into his body. As for his cause of death, it looks like his own tail was used forcefully against him, against his own control. The fourth corpse was that of another man. His face was split into two halves thanks to face paint. The right side was black, while the left side was white. His light green hair was matted with sweat, as was most of his body. The oddest thing was the large, plant-like mouth that surrounded his body, as if threatening to engulf it. It looked like a Venus flytrap. Protruding from his fingers were thorny vines, and they, like the rest of the vegetation that lay around his body, were wilting away into brown, flaky material. His arms looked like they had been burned by fire, and his torso was crushed. He used plants as a weapon, and most likely as a defense as well. His arms were burned so that he couldn't utilize his chakra effectively enough to use his plants extensively, I think. As for his torso, it looks like it was crushed, as if he were stepped on. Maybe it was Gamma Bunta. The next body was that of a female. Her red hair was short and spiky, save for the long strands that covered her left eye, which was red in color. Instead of arms, she possessed brown, leathery bat-like wings. Protruding from her toes were claws. Her ears were bleeding, and her sternum had been cut away, revealing her crushed heart and lungs. Wings of a bat, toes of a bat. Maybe she has a contract with bats, allowing her to use Kachiyose no Jutsu. As for her bleeding ears, I think she used sound waves to both see and attack, as bats can't see with their eyes. I think the same went for her in this transformed state. Her sound waves were probably amplified and reflected back at her, overwhelming her ears. And, in the disorientation that followed, she was attacked up close. The sixth body was an absolute giant of a man, easily at 9 feet when standing at full height. His entire body was made of solid gray stone, and there was no blood visible around the body. However, several parts of the body showed needle-like points of attack near the head, neck, chest, wrists, ankles, and thighs. His eyes, which were utterly blank, were made of rock as well. On the forehead were tiny grooves etched in an intricate pattern, the sign of a seal that had once been, but was no longer. Wrapped around his right bicep was a headband protector, and on it was the symbol of Iwagakure, the village hidden in the stone. That is no mere transformation jutsu. With the exception of his inner coils, all of his body was transformed into stone, even the brain. That way, there would be no weak points, and with his inner coil system intact, he used his chakra to move the body according to his own will. That seal was probably used to keep the chakra contained, but the seal was removed, and the punctures were made on or near his opening points so that his chakra would flow out more quickly. Without his chakra, he simply ceased to be. Of course, all of his thinking was just logical conjecture. He could be wrong. Perhaps the puncture points were the weak points on the body. The Jonin didn't know for sure. The seventh corpse was that of another man. His silver hair and uniform were instantly recognizable to Kokushi. It was Yakushi Kabuto, the right-hand man of Orochimaru. His body was lying face down on the ground. His body showed no signs of battle, aside from a few bruises near the right arm. Even so, Kakashi knew he was dead. Kabuto, he must have been so heavily damaged during the battle that he had to use his healing ability. But in doing so, he exhausted all of his chakra, and he died. The next body was that of a man. A headband protector tied down his short, blonde hair, and it had the symbol of the hidden waterfall village on it. His Akatsuki cloak was gone, revealing blue sweatpants and a lean, muscular body. His torso was lined with sweat, and the sand around him was wet with perspiration. On his right pectoral was a tattoo of 3 wavy lines. Kakashi frowned. I recognize that symbol. He's Akira of the Waterfall's Fujiwara clan. A clan that specializes in the use of steam. Akira was the progeny of that clan, but a decade ago, he tried to kill the leader of his village, but failed. He joined Akatsuki soon after, and judging by all of the perspiration on the body, he exhausted himself using his chakra-powered steam. His body couldn't handle the strain, but he is a tough adversary. It would have taken something extraordinary to kill him by fatigue. The 9th body was instantly familiar to Kakashi. The build, the frame, and the other defining factor was the leaf headband that lay beside the body. The actual metal protector was split in the middle. It was the body of Uchiha Itachi, and it was missing a head. Kakashi was visibly shocked. Itachi. The one who killed all but one of the Uchiha clan. The one who possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan, the highest level of the Sharingan mirror wheel eye. I wonder who killed him in such a fashion. The 10th and final corpse was that of a well-built man wrapped in dark red robes. The robes were in tatters, revealing a bandaged body underneath. However, it was apparent that the bandages were not for wounds, they were for keeping the muscles tense in those areas. However, the chest possessed a gaping, bloody hole, right over the herd. And, like Itachi, it was lacking a head. That has to be the body of Orochimaru, and if what Jiraiya said was true, He had come here after Sasuke so that he could take the Uchiha's body as his own. Kakashi finally let it sink into him. Akatsuki was dead. Kabuto, traitor to the Leafs, was dead. Orochimaru, hated adversary of Konoha, was dead. No. There should be 9 Akatsuki members. There were only 8 Akatsuki corpses. The copy ninja grimaced. Where was the 9th body? Suddenly, Kakashi remembered something. Where was Gaara? Where was Sasuke? Where was Naruto? You missed the battle. Kakashi suddenly glanced to his right to see a familiar figure rising out of the wall of sand. It was the Cage, Gaara of the desert. Gaara's dark brown robes were matted with sweat, and the sleeves of his uniform were ripped off. His left arm was covered in dried blood. The cut was near his bicep, but a bandage of sand had closed it up. As a result of that, the bleeding had stopped. He also had several large bruises around his torso and right arm. Even so, despite his injuries and fatigue, his face and eyes showed no emotion. The gourd on his back, however, looked to be in impeccable condition. His blood-red hair ruffled in the sudden wind. Hitaki Kakashi, Jonin of Konoha. Why are you here? Kakashi quickly answered. Cage-sama. I came because your siblings notified the Leaf of Akatsuki's presence here at Sanagakure. Gaara said nothing. However, his eyes enlarged ever so slightly. A sign that he was relieved for the help. Are you the only one to come? I am only the first. Soon, fellow Konoha ninja, both Chunin and Jonin, will arrive. The 5th, however, has elected to remain behind in Konoha, because Nukanen hired by Akatsuki attacked us. She has to stay to keep the village strong. Of course. Being a Cage is a troublesome duty, responded Gaara quietly. He quietly glanced southward toward his village. Inwardly, he was glad that Akatsuki had not touched the village. However, that had been due to the fact that a powerful steam barrier had been set up by the one known as Fujiwara Akira. Fortunately, Kankuro and Tamari had been long gone by the time the barrier had been set up. Upon his death, the barrier had fallen. Soon, ninja from the sand would arrive. The Cage glanced down at his bloody left arm. Shukaku got a good workout, but his battle was not as strenuous as the one the Nine Tails experienced. Kakashi froze. 9 Tails. Kyuubi. Gaara pointed downward at the arena of sand. Look. Kakashi did. And he finally saw them. Footprints in the sand. There were the prints of webbed feet. The sign of Gamabunta. There were the long, curvy lines indicative of a snake. Perhaps a sign of Manda, an anaconda summon of Orochimaru's. There were also tanuki prints. Those of Shukaku, the demon sand spirit. But the last kind of paw print was far more commonplace. Fox prints. Kyuubi. Could it be that the seal was broken? It would explain why he couldn't see Naruto. Kyuubi would have run off by now. You worry for nothing, said Gaara, his eyes calm as ever. You only need to look harder. Look down at the obsidian seal. Kakashi looked down at the slab of obsidian, and he suddenly gaped. He saw 2 figures down there. Living figures. He quickly dashed down the wall and towards the obsidian sheet. Gaara sighed as he quietly charged his hand with chakra. With a quick jab, the Cage thrust his right hand into the top of the Colosseum wall. Moments later, the entire Colosseum began disintegrating into normal sand, falling back down towards the desert. Gaara slowly floated down on a platform of sand, knowing that the collapsing Colosseum would bring Sand Ninja. Kakashi, meanwhile, leapt onto the obsidian seal, and then he gazed to his right. Naruto was sitting near the edge of the black slab, and his entire body was covered with blood. His hair was matted with blood. His orange and black uniform was in tatters. A number of cuts lined his scalp, cheeks, torso, arms, waist, and legs, and yet, despite his condition, he was smiling. Kakashi glanced to his left, and he nearly gaped. Sitting there on the ground, legs crossed, was Sasuke. His skin was as black as midnight, and his forearms and shins were covered with slanted spikes. His nails had turned into claws. His spiky hair was short and as white as snow. 2 white angels' wings protruded from his shoulder blades, and his eyes. Kakashi could not believe what he saw in those red eyes. Instead of 3 curvy dots, he saw a 3-pointed shuriken. That is the Mangekyo Sharingan. Sasuke. He has taken his eyes to the highest level. And beside Sasuke were two things Kakashi had missed during his body count. The heads of Itachi and Orochimaru. Sasuke. Did he beat them on his own? So idiot, said Naruto, out of the blue. How do you feel? I bet that level 3 curse seal's making you feel like crap. Kakashi's eye widened. Level 3? That would explain why it looks different compared to the level 2 curse form Naruto told me about 3 years ago. But how has Sasuke's heaven seal been upgraded to level 3? Kukakuku. Laughed Sasuke, in the style of Orochimaru. Don't get cute with me, dunce. You aren't looking so good yourself. Even as he spoke, the cursed power began to recede back into the seal. Sasuke was reverting to normal. Naruto chuckled. The way they were carrying on, it was as if they hadn't noticed Kakashi. So, I've annihilated Orochimaru. You've killed Itachi. By the way, you should be thankful I left him for you. Sasuke smirked as his body reverted to its normal color. I am grateful. But I'm afraid I have no reason to live now. Have anything to say to that? With a blink, his eyes reverted to normal. The Mangekyo Sharingan was no longer visible. Yeah, Naruto smirked as he stared at Sasuke's red eyes. Find a new reason. Cause if you don't, how else are you going to make a decent rival to me? After all, he then flashed a toothy, yet bloody, grin at the last of the Uchiha. I may have beaten Akatsuki, but a life in Konoha wouldn't be the same without Mr. Avenger. Dumbass, muttered Sasuke, a strange smile on his face. However, I'm open to suggestions. Give me a little while. I'll think of something. I always do, replied Naruto. With that said, both boys slumped to the ground. Naruto was unconscious due to his wounds, and Sasuke was unconscious due to the huge amount of chakra eaten up by the level 3 curse seal and the Mangekyo Sharingan. Kakashi immediately checked both boys. They were alive, but barely. Naruto needed immediate treatment, and Sasuke needed his chakra replenished. Still, they accomplished the impossible. Akatsuki had fallen, save for one. Help is in sight. Kakashi turned around to see Jiraiya, his shoulder bandaged up, climbing onto the slab of obsidian. The copy ninja glanced behind him to see 4 Jonin and 6 Chunin advancing from the east. Jonin of the Sand, Kankuro and Temari. Jonin of the Leaf, Maeda Gai and Hyuga Neji. Chunin of the Leaf, Haruno Sakura, Rock Lee, Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, Yamanaka Ino, and Nara Shikamaru. Oh, and one dog named Akamaru. Jiraiya was silent as he gazed at Sasuke, and then at Naruto. That foolish dunderhead, taking on Akatsuki on his own. And yet he won. And as a plus, Orochimaru was killed, and Sasuke was brought back, replied Kakashi. However, one member of Akatsuki isn't here. Jiraiya nodded. I know. The missing member is the leader of Akatsuki. Why didn't he show up? I don't even know what kind of abilities he possesses. 4x. Gaara was silent as Kankuro and Temari suddenly appeared at his side. Siblings, you are injured. It doesn't matter, Gaara. I mean Kazekage-sama, sputtered Kankuro as he looked at Gaara's left arm. No need for formalities. In all honesty, this is a time to relax, said Gaara, his voice calm as usual. Because of Naruto, Akatsuki has fallen. Naruto? Yelped Temari. You mean, he beat Akatsuki on his own? Gaara shook his head. The Uchiha, that Sannin, and I helped. But Naruto was the deciding factor. Of course, Gaara had not, and could not, and never would, forget the sight of Kyuubi, stampeding inside the Colosseum, attacking Akatsuki. Naruto. He is truly like me. He has a monster inside of him, yet he never lost himself. He never let himself succumb to the power of the demon. As the Kazekage watched the Leaf Ninja advance toward the obsidian seal, he let a small smile tug at his lips, a rarity for him. Naruto. You are not a maelstrom. You are much greater than that. You are a great typhoon of power. Your power affects the land, the sea, and the sky, and yet, you keep it in control. Your power utterly crushes those you seek to harm. But, your power ripples out, affecting those precious to you, and their lives are made better by that power. Naruto. You are truly unique. 4x. Sakura gasped at the sight of her 2 former teammates, lying on the slab of obsidian. Sasuke. Naruto. On impulse, Sakura immediately rushed to Sasuke's side. Kakashi's sweat dropped. Some things never change. Kiba snorted as he rubbed his nose irritably. Geez, this place reeks of blood. It's making my nose itch. From inside his jacket, Akamaru barked out of concurrence. Rough. Shikamaru grumbled as he stared at the bodies of Akatsuki. Man, how bothersome. Ino resisted the urge to strike her friend in the back of his head. What the heck are you talking about? What's bothersome about Akatsuki and Orochimaru dying? Shikamaru sighed. You misunderstand. Shikamaru was truly glad about the deaths of Akatsuki and Orochimaru. On the way here, Guy had explained everything he knew about Akatsuki and their presence in Sanagakure. He had also gone further in depth about Orochimaru, due to the sound's attack on the leaf. The reason I'm bothered is because these corpses will have to be disposed of. After all, their secret jutsu and bloodline abilities can be obtained from their corpses. So to avoid any hassle, we'll have to contact the home villages of these ninja. With the exceptions of Orochimaru, Kabuto, and Itachi, all of these other ninja belong to different clans. They won't like it if any of their secrets are surrendered. Oh, replied a bewildered Ino. That makes sense, I guess. Neji, meanwhile, was gazing at Naruto with his Byakugan, the bloodline limit of the Leaf's Hyuga clan. It looks like most of his opening points have been closed, yet he was still able to come out on top. Did he use that strange red chakra that he used to beat me? Ooh, whooped Lee as he gazed at the battleground. This was the home to a glorious and valiant battle. Such a battle had to be one of legends. My only regret was that I was unable to partake in such a great conflict. Immediately afterwards, he showed his nice guy pose, a thumbs up accompanied by a toothy grin, to Guy. But do not worry, Guy-sensei. Once we get back to Konoha, I'll do 2,000 one-handed push-ups on each hand to prepare for the next legendary battle. This exuberant proclamation got a round of sweat drops from Sakura, Ino, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Kiba. Bonehead, that's the spirit, Lee. Let the fiery blood of your youth spur you on, cheered Guy. However, he was not so cheerful on the inside. Unfortunately for you, Lee, this was no mere battle. This was more akin to a clash of titans. Not even I would have escaped such a fight with my life. Hinata looked down at Naruto. The bloody, unconscious Naruto. She quietly pulled out a jar of medicinal cream from a pocket in her green Chunin vest, fumbling with its lid. Her dark hair fluttered in the wind of the desert. The uncertainty in the air matched the concern and worry in her eyes. Naruto-kun. Naruto opened one eye. Hinata squeaked. This caused Neji, Lee, and Jiraiya to turn their attention towards the blonde ninja. Naruto chuckled as Neji stepped into sight. Hey, Hinata. The dark-haired girl nervously mumbled, Why yes and Naruto-kun. I never got to find out if you watched me kick Neji's ass. The statement caused Neji and Hinata's eyes to widen. The white-eyed Jonin suddenly blanched out of surprise. He's referring to my battle with him at the Chunin selection exam over 3 years ago. As Neji thought about it, he chuckled. Hey, despite being in such poor condition after such a tremendous battle, you bring up something so old and so off-topic you have no choice but to laugh. Uzumaki Naruto, you are one interesting guy. Hinata giggled at Naruto's statement. She quietly fumbled with the lid of her jar as she said, And Naruto-kun, if you don't mind, here. Hey. No thanks, Hinata. Naruto smirked as he got to his feet. This caused the two Hyuga to pale. I can still stand. Naruto-kun, roared Lee, his right hand clenched into a fist. You are too injured to stand. Let us escort you back home. Fei, shows what you know, thick brows, retorted Naruto as he slowly walked toward Sasuke's position. I've still got enough chakra to make it home on my own. Or should I say, you have enough chakra to get me home. A deep, monstrous voice suddenly blasted through his mind. Arrogant fledgling. Without me, you'd be paste. Yeah, I love you too. Not. Naruto resisted the urge to snicker. Ever since he had gone under Jiraiya's training to access the power of the Nine Tails chakra, the voice of Kyuubi had become a more commonplace part of his thoughts. Whether or not it was a good thing, he had yet to know. On one hand, the fox demon had a knack for ticking him off to no end. On the other hand, when Jiraiya left to gather information, yeah right, stupid super pervert. The voice of Kyuubi was a welcome break from the solitude of loneliness. Naruto stepped in front of Sasuke, his blue eyes staring at Sakura. Her hands were covered with a green aura, a sign she was trying to help Sasuke recover with her own chakra. A wry smile came to his face. Heh. Guess you really haven't changed, Sakura-chan. Sakura looked up at Naruto, and she immediately flushed out of embarrassment. Sasuke looked pretty fine, inner Sakura, in more ways than one. Look at those muscles. Yowza. And here was Naruto, covered from head to toe with blood. I guess I still need to work on my priorities, huh? Naruto smiled as he grabbed Sasuke and hoisted him over his shoulder. Well, guess you'll have plenty of time to work on your priorities on your way back to Konoha. What are you talking about, Naruto? Asked Kakashi out of concern. Simple, replied Naruto with a wide smile. I'm going back to Konoha. I'll be there in no time. Are you nuts? Roared Sakura. Sasuke needs attention, yelled Ino. The two girls quickly glanced at each other afterwards. You're in no condition to even move, said Jiraiya, his dark eyes staring quietly at Naruto. Secretly, he was glad Naruto was alive, but he'd never give the bum the satisfaction of hearing that. Naruto said nothing, at least, not at first. Seconds later, he chuckled. Stupid pervert Sennin. Don't underestimate me. Jiraiya nearly face-faulted. I've told you not to call me that. Heh. Sure. Naruto smiled at everyone. See you back in Konoha. Then, with a yellow flash, he was gone. It looked like he just blinked out of existence. Everyone yelped out of surprise. Wah, yelped Kiba. Where the heck did he go? Kakashi was suddenly flabbergasted. No way. That was Hiraishin no Jutsu. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu. That's the fourth special jutsu, the technique of Konoha's yellow flash. How did Naruto learn it? As if sensing Kakashi's confusion, Jiraiya coughed. Well, when the fourth was developing that technique as a young boy, he didn't have the precise chakra control needed to use it. The Flying Thunder God was a technique that utilized a kind of teleportation. The user sent out an invisible line of chakra to the target destination. The user then transported his body along that stream of chakra, combining it with his own chakra to catapult him to the end of the line. Hiraishin no Jutsu. The Flying Thunder God technique. It required incredibly precise chakra control. Enough to send out a long, invisible line of chakra, and then to teleport yourself along the line using your energy. Even though he came up with the idea, I helped him develop the control necessary to master it. Granted, it isn't the perfected version that the Yondaime finally made, but the kid ain't that far yet. I take it you gave Naruto the same kind of training. Kakashi was now stoic. Jiraiya smirked. Yes. But the ironic thing is this. Naruto was the same age as the Yondaime when he mastered the original version of the Flying Thunder God. Kakashi was visibly surprised. However, underneath his face mask, he was smiling. Naruto. Do you even have limits? 4x. The 5th Hokage's office, Konohagakure, Fire Country. Tsunade, the 5th Hokage of Konoha, was upset. Blasted Akatsuki. Blasted Orochimaru. It had been about 3 days since the battle had ended. The outer walls of the village were demolished, and everything else in the immediate vicinity of the walls was destroyed. Right near the end of the battle, Kankuro and Temari of the Sand had arrived. They assisted, and they had told of Akatsuki's presence outside Sanagakure. Upon the end of that battle, Kakashi had immediately departed for the Wind Country. Tsunade sent 2 Jonin and 6 Chunin, along with Kankuro and Temari, to follow the copy ninja to the sand. And she was upset because she had yet to hear anything. What's taking so long? They should have reported via carrier pigeon by now. A flicker of yellow suddenly appeared in front of her desk. In the instant it appeared, it was replaced by a bloody Naruto, who was holding an unconscious Sasuke. Tsunade paled as she yelled, Naruto? Naruto smirked, despite the fact he felt like crap. Hey, hiya, you old hag. Then he slumped to the floor. 4x. Secret Cavern, Fire Country. A man clad in the black and red cloud cloak of Akatsuki frowned. Sitting on a rock in front of him were 8 kunai knives. Strapped to them were strands of hair from the other 8 members of Akatsuki. They glowed with white light as long as each strand's owner was still alive. This was due to a special jutsu of his that could determine whether or not someone was dead or alive from a distance. The trick was creating a chakra link between the person, the part of their body, and the medium, which was the kunai knife in this case. Hours ago, they began to go out one by one. Finally, the last one, Akira's, had been neutralized less than an hour ago. So, they have fallen. The man grumbled. How could this have happened? How could everything have unraveled? He had been so close to obtaining Shukaku and Kyuubi, but the plan had failed. The man cursed to himself. If he had gone, everything would have gone according to plan, but he had not been able to bring himself to go to Sunagakure. It hadn't been out of fear, it had been out of uncertainty. The host of Shukaku was no problem to him, but the host of Kyuubi was another matter altogether. The man scowled as he stood. His body became awash in an orange chakra, illuminating him and the dark cavern around him. The only part of his body that could be seen was his hair and his eyes. His cloak covered the rest. His short brown hair was spiky and it jutted upwards. His eyes were colored a piercing, deadly green. I did better alone. I defeated the other three before I formed Akatsuki, and I shall defeat the last two alone. Shukaku will fall first, and then, I shall face the host of Kyuubi. The man sighed as his aura died away, shrouding him in darkness once more. Gaara. Uzumaki Naruto, you're both mine. Return to Konoha. Tale of the Great Bottles beginning. 4x. Desert, outside Sunagakure, Wind Country. The Akatsuki corpses had been lined up. Hitaki Kakashi, Maeda Guy, and Hyuga Neji were quietly looking at the bodies. Soon, dispatches from other ninja villages would arrive to pick up the corpse that belonged to them. After careful examination, they knew who the corpses once were. So, Fujiwara Akira of the Hidden Waterfall Village, droned Kakashi as he moved on to the next group. Deidara and the one who had transformed his body into solid rock was lying there. Deidara and Yagami Hiroto of the Hidden Stone Village. Then he glanced at the body of Kisame. Hoshigaki Kisame of the Hidden Mist Village. Then the body of the Bat Woman. Kumorimaru of the Hidden Cloud Village. Then the body of the puppet user. Akasuna no Sasori of the Hidden Sand Village. Then he glanced at the body of the plant user. Toya Shu of the Hidden Grass Village. Finally, the last of the bodies that belonged to the Hidden Leaf. Uchiha Itachi, Yakushi Kabuto, and Orochimaru. All former members of the Leaf. A bitter chuckle escaped Guy's mouth. Hey, I guess we finally know where Shu disappeared to. Over 12 years ago, when Kyuubi had struck the Leaf and the surrounding lands, a member of the Grass Toya clan had disappeared. It had been Shu, the newly elected leader of the clan. The Toya clan was a plant-using clan. They even had contracts with plant creatures. Shu had been talented enough to summon Ogi Daimyo, the plant lord, and then merge him with his body. The only way Shu could have done that was if Ogi Daimyo had agreed to such a thing. The Toya clan will not be happy to hear that the plant lord went astray. Although the Leaf had suffered the most from Kyuubi, the grass had suffered some damage as well. And when the news of Shu's disappearance reached the Leaf, it had caused so much of a stir that they had offered some ninja to help search. After all, the Hidden Grass Village was a close ally of the Leaf's. The plant creatures are going to need a new daimyo, commented Neji. The white-eyed Jonin asked, why did Shu leave? Kakashi shrugged. All I know is that he became increasingly despondent after a mission to the Lightning Country. That had been about several months before Kyuubi struck. I wonder what happened to make Shu leave the grass. However, there was also the fact that 3 infamous traitors had been finally dealt with. Itachi, murderer of the entire Uchiha clan. Kabuto, spy for the Hidden Sound Village. Orochimaru, infamous traitor and murderer of Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage. It's over, the pain they caused will never strike Konoha again, thought Kakashi, his mind lost in thought. Meanwhile, over near the obsidian slab, Lee, Hinata, Sakura, Ino, and Kiba were analyzing the massive circular seal. Lee looked on in curiosity. I've never seen such a massive seal, it's over 200 feet in diameter. This seal was used for restraining someone, commented Sakura, her eyes fixated on the 2 rectangles in the very center. The way the lines are drawn, and the subtle curves in the corners, they represent a bend, but don't break kind of seal. A break, But don't bend, seal doesn't require any help as long as the seal is whole. But if the imprisoned person manages to summon enough chakra, they can break out on their own. Kiba scratched his hair confusedly. And what's the difference with this one? This one requires a constant supply of chakra to be maintained, otherwise, the seal is useless. However, this kind of seal can't be broken from within, not one this large and complex anyway, finished Sakura. Wow. You know a lot, Sakura, replied Hinata. Ino snickered. She doesn't have that big forehead for nothing. Sakura glared back at Ino. Inner Sakura. Just you wait, you porker. I'll roast you alive. However, part of her was troubled. As a student of Tsunade the Godem Hokage, she knew a lot about seals, as they were often used for medical purposes. However, something about this seal bothered her. This was used for more than just imprisoning people, but what? Her mind drifted to Sasuke. And Naruto. She feebly folded her hands together. Please be okay? Meanwhile, near the entrance of Tsunagakure, Shikamaru was standing in front of Gaara and his siblings Kankuro and Temari. In the vicinity behind the cage were the people of the Sand Village. Their faces telegraphed relief. They were glad that their cage was unharmed. Are you sure you want to handle it? Asked Shikamaru, his green chunin vest fluttering in the wind. The Leaf would be more than glad to deal with the return of the corpses to their respective nations. Gaara nodded. The other villages would get suspicious if you willingly delivered the corpses of the missing nin. They might suspect that the Leaf examined the bodies to harvest the secrets within, and that would bring unwanted trouble. When it comes to corpses, the other villages would like to set the terms of their retrieval. If they come for the corpses, it would be less of a hassle. Besides, it is a way for the Sand to prove its trustworthiness to the other villages. Shikamaru nodded. There was an angle to Gaara's approach. Konohagakure possessed many allies. On the other hand, Tsunagakure had relatively little after what had happened at the Chunin selection exam over 3 years ago. This would be a chance for the Sand to gain allies, and that would make the village stronger. Tsunagakure would become more widely known, and that meant more clients for the Sand's shinobi. Sharp, Gaara, real sharp. Besides, one of the bodies belongs to us, said Temari. This statement caused Kankuro to snort. The fact that Akasuna no Sasori had been discovered to be an Akatsuki member was bad enough. It was especially bad for him, because Sasori, the greatest puppet maker in the land, had made Kankuro's puppets for him several years ago. So, said Kankuro out of the blue, trying to mask his disgust. You gonna be departing? It's going to be dark soon, and it gets cold at night in the desert. We really have to get back, muttered Shikamaru. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to spend the night in a nice hotel. But we've got to get back to Konoha to help repair the village. He sighed ruefully. Man, I'm not even good with woodwork, and I'll probably have to do stuff. It's such a bother. This caused Temari to smirk. Well then, you'd better get going. Just don't get a cramp on the way back. With that said, she turned around and walked towards the village. A small smile emerged on Shikamaru's mouth. Hey, girls are so troublesome. A sudden shadow began to fall over the land. The cage, Kankuro, and the denizens of the Sand stared with shock. Temari and Shikamaru turned around to see what it was that shocked them so. They gaped. The ninja from the Leaf also stared, stunned and in disbelief over what was happening. On the horizon, where the sun was about to set, a black disk suddenly sprouted up, slowly covering the glowing orb of fire in the sky. It was as if it was trying to quell the light of the sun. It was the moon, which meant, ooh, an eclipse, enthusiastically yelled Lee. I've never seen one before. What a grandiose way to cap off a historical day. Just don't look directly at it. You might blind yourself, commented Ino. Lee silenced himself. The minutes passed. The moon continued to block the sun, darkening the desert as if it were some dark god blighting the land with a blanket of shadows. Then, the sun was completely covered. The moon was now a black dot in the sky with a fiery white outline. In a way, it was both terrifying and magnificent to gaze at. The obsidian seal suddenly glowed red, its lines and curves all glowed in unison, shocking those who stood upon it. Everyone, get off, roared Guy. The chunins that stood upon the seal did so. The lines and symbols glowed a red far bloodier in color than any human could muster. However, there seemed to be no adverse affect. Minutes passed. The eclipse ended. The sun sank, and the moon rose. The obsidian seal ceased its glow. MRRR, whimpered Akamaru from within Kiba's jacket. Kiba nodded out of concurrence, understanding what the little dog said. I hear ya, what the heck just happened? Why weren't we affected? Because apparently, said Kakashi as he slowly walked over to the Chunins. This seal only reacts to the light of an eclipse, and if you look closely, part of the seal was damaged during the battle, so it couldn't achieve its desired effect. Besides, the two people necessary for the seal to carry out its effect aren't here. The ninja could tell who Kakashi was referring to. Gaara, the Cage of the Sand, and Uzumaki Naruto, the show-stopping ninja of Konoha. Hinata felt a pang of sadness grip her heart as she thought about Naruto's horrible condition. Naruto-kun. Meanwhile, on one of the tallest buildings in Sanagakure, Jiraiya stared down quietly. From here, he could see the obsidian seal and the horizon. The glow was not at all lost on him. So, the information about the sun and the moon was correct. During the many times Jiraiya had gone info hunting, he had come up with one phrase that was quite common. We must obtain them before the moon becomes the sun. During an eclipse, the moon takes the place of the sun, and when the eclipse ends, the moon is no longer one with the sun. Jiraiya sighed out of frustration. Today was the deadline for their plan, but the problem is, what were they planning? 4X. Hospital. Konohagakure, Fire Country. Inside a large hospital room, two beds sat several yards apart. In the left one sat Naruto, and in the right one sat Sasuke. A window embedded in the wall revealed the starry night sky of Konoha. Hovering over Naruto was Tsunade. He had been cleaned of blood, but his wounds needed healing. Her hands glowed with green chakra as she used her medical ninjutsu to heal the boy. Standing behind her were two medical ninja, their hands on her back. They were supplying her with extra chakra. This way, she wouldn't run low. If they ran low, then two more medical ninja would replace them. Tsunade grunted, Shizune, how is Sasuke? Tsunade's dark-haired assistant Shizune grumbled as her hands glowed green with chakra. Although Sasuke's wounds were not as great as Naruto's, his body had been put under a great strain by the level 3 curse seal. Like Tsunade, she had two medical ninja supplying her with extra chakra. He is getting better, Hokage-sama. The two boys were unconscious. They would not wake up for a while. However, their minds were active. And in Naruto's mind, he was remembering. 4X. Naruto's flashback. Earlier that morning. Desert. 30 miles away from Sanagakure, Wind Country. The blonde-haired teen stood, his feet leaving imprints in the desert sand. His orange and black ninja uniform stood out against the yellow sands. The sun was a thin edge against the eastern horizon. His leaf Hitai reflected the light of the rising sun. Two pouches sat on his right thigh. They held kunai knives and shuriken. His blue eyes stared westward, toward his destination. Sanagakure, where Akatsuki awaited him. His teeth clenched together out of anger. Those monsters, Akatsuki? 3 days ago, upon returning to home late at night, he had found a note waiting for him. From Akatsuki. It told him that they had the cage and that they wanted him to come to Sanagakure. Naruto snarled. Such ignorance, such arrogance, such idiocy. Those stupids, stupid. Ah, finally ACKNOWELDGING your own stupidity? Shut up you damn fox. You've yet to find a mute button for me. Ignore the fox Naruto, ignore the fox. Knock knock. Rah, roared Naruto. Of all the times for the fox to talk, it was now. Whenever Naruto was moody or in an angry mood, the fox would talk. And he would make Naruto even angrier. Kyuubi had an uncanny knack for doing that. Now where was I? Contemplating releasing me. Nice try, retorted Naruto. He had been thinking about Akatsuki. Those stupid idiots, those arrogant jackasses. They didn't care. They only saw him and Gaara for what they had in them. Monsters. Shukaku, and Kyuubi. They wanted the demons sealed within them, and they disregarded him as nothing more than worthless refuse. It sickened him. He had dealt with such hateful people for a large portion of his life. They only saw him as a demon, and Gaara too had only been seen as a demon. Naruto growled. He would end it today. Today he would prove his strength. He would prove that he wasn't just some vessel for a demon. He was a human. He was a ninja. He was a proud warrior for Konoha, the village hidden in the leaves. He would defeat Akatsuki, no matter what. I bet you'll die within the first 10 minutes. Ignore the fox, ignore the fox, ignore the fox, ignore the fox, ignore. 4x. Desert, outside Sanagakure, wind country. A slab of obsidian sat upon the desert sands like a floor mat in a house. Nearby sat the hidden sand village, but a gigantic barrier of steam covered it, preventing access from the outside. Upon the obsidian slab was a complex, circular seal written on in red dye. Positioned across the seal's circumference were 8 nodes. Within those nodes sat the members of Akatsuki. They were using their chakra to keep the seal intact, because within a rectangle at the center of the seal was Gaara of the desert. The cage was staring quietly at the 8 Akatsuki members around him. He would love nothing more than to strike at them, to crush them with his desert graveyard technique. He would, if he could move. As things were, Gaara couldn't manipulate his chakra. He couldn't even move an inch. All he could do was breathe, blink, and move his eyes. He was restrained, thanks to the obsidian seal. Gaara sat upright, his arms and legs crossed. The red lines glowed a dull color. It was a sign that the 8 Akatsuki members were using their chakra to keep the seal active. Akatsuki. From Gaara's perspective, they looked like wraiths with straw hats. Their black and red cloud cloaks fluttered in the wind of the desert. Their hands were placed on the obsidian slab, transmitting their chakra into the seal. Kumorimaru glared at Fujiwara Akira. He had been the one to chuckle. Akira, growled the red-haired woman. I told you to stop reading those crappy books and focus on the task at hand. Akira smiled as he glanced back with his blue eyes. One hand was on the obsidian seal, and the other held a small book titled, Icha Paradise. Come on Kumorimaru. You know as well as I do that once the eclipse occurs, there's a possibility this book's writer won't survive the chaos that follows. I'm just getting my kicks in while I can. As he said this, his face was red. Just be glad my Yukamoriseki doesn't require my focus to hold together. The Yukamoriseki was the gigantic barrier of steam he had erected over the hidden sand village. This way, no one would interfere. He flipped a page with his thumb and chuckled again. Toya Shu chuckled slightly. Ogi Daimyo, the plant lord, sneered. The plant lord appeared to be nothing more than a giant Venus flytrap, but he was so much more. Ignorant human. Even as we advance toward our goal, he still partakes in pleasures of the flesh. Shu was quick to speak. Don't forget that he is merely human like all of us. Once the plan is complete, you'll see his strength firsthand, because only the strongest shall survive. His voice was hoarse and whispery, as if he had been a smoker all of his life. On the contrary, his voice was only like that because of the fact plants grew throughout his body. Some of the roots of the Ogi Daimyo were right next to his vocal cords. Yagami Hiroto of the stone was silent. His gigantic frame seemed much smaller under his Akatsuki cloak. However, his face seemed to be nothing more than muscle and bone with facial features on top. He was completely bald, but wrapped around his forehead was a stone hattai that was split in the middle. He quietly glanced at Deidara, a former stone ninja as well. Deidara. His voice was deep and low, like a growling tiger. The female clay user glanced back at the tremendous Hiroto. Don't be so worried, yeah. It's all coming together, yeah. Hiroto was silent, insightful. She knew what I was going to say. Are you sure the vessel will come here? Asked Sasori. His wooden scorpion tail suddenly slipped out from under his cloak, twitching with anxiousness. As you can see, I'm feeling a bit restless. Kisame chuckled, his light blue skin glistening in the morning sun. Aren't we all? But don't worry, the foxboy will come. He glanced at Itachi, a wicked smile on his face. Right, Itachi? Uchiha Itachi was silent beneath his straw hat. He was busy thinking. For one, he was wondering about the other 4 that they already had. Our leader Mantaro possesses the 3 tails, the 5 tails, and the no tail, and we have the 1 tail with us. Now we just have to wait for the 9 tails. Itachi frowned. He had an oddly foreboding feeling about the coming of the 9 tails, and that was something that was out of character for him. No matter. The moment he arrives, the Yondaimi's inheritance will be ours. Ogi Daimyo suddenly twitched. Toya Shu smiled, his oddly empty eyes narrowing. He's coming. The 8 Akatsuki members glanced eastward. A small silhouette stood out against the horizon. Kisame grinned. He came. He suddenly stood up, clutching Samahata tightly. I'll get him over here. As Kisame walked away, Hiroto pumped a bit more chakra to compensate for Kisame, but it really didn't matter. Only one Akatsuki member was needed to keep the obsidian seal powered. Even so, the amount of chakra needed to hold the seal was massive, so it would take at least 4 or 5 Akatsuki members if they wanted to have enough chakra for a fight. Sasori grumbled. No fair. I wanted to face the last demon vessel. You have more chakra than Kisame, yeah. You'll be able to supply the seal longer, yeah, replied Deidara, her odd style of speaking showing through. Sasori grumbled anyway. Kisame walked casually towards the rapidly approaching silhouette, which began to form human features as it came closer. In time, it formed into a familiar-looking boy, and that boy skidded to a stop 15 yards away from Kisame. It was Uzumaki Naruto. Kisame snickered as he held Samahata over his shoulder. So, I take it our messenger bird managed to get the note to you. Naruto snorted. He glanced beyond Kisame to see the obsidian seal, the other 7 Akatsuki members, and in the center was Gaara. Release Gaara. Kisame chuckled. That wouldn't quite be fair to you, because you're going to be sitting where he is as well. Like a good little vessel. Naruto's fists clenched. Ooh, struck a nerve, did he? Naruto ignored Kyuubi. He angrily pointed a finger at Kisame. There's more to me than just being a vessel for a demon, and I'm going to prove it to you by beating all of you. How cute. Kisame prepared to swing Samahata. Prepare to die. The wind blew. The morning sun shined down upon them, casting a reddish glow on the desert. Soon, the desert would be colored red for a different reason. Naruto immediately performed katas with his hands. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He split into 5 different copies that took out 1 kunai knife each. They all threw them. Kisame calmly swung his blade, deflecting the kunai knives. Come now, don't think you can defeat me with such a rudimentary technique. Growling, 4 Narutos leapt at the former mist ninja. They exploded in puffs of smoke as Samahata ripped through them. Without hesitation, he leapt for the last Naruto. We need you alive, but that doesn't mean I can't rip off a leg. He swung. Naruto smirked. He was suddenly 20 yards behind Kisame. The mist ninja blinked as he tilted his head backward. Quick little devil. How'd he move so fast? Naruto smiled. Hiraishin no Jutsu had been a success. He quickly performed a different set of katas before slamming his hands into the ground. Hibashira no Jutsu. Blazing fire tower. Kisame felt a rumbling feeling underneath him. A column of fire suddenly erupted from below, consuming him. Fire that flared with red, orange, and yellow color. The flames roared with rage as they overwhelmed Hoshigaki Kisame. From a distance, the other Akatsuki members watched on with interest. Akira smiled. Hey, looks like the runts got some spunk. Just watch, yeah, replied Deidara. Kisami's barely even started, yeah. When the flames ceased, Kisame could be seen. Naruto blanched. No way. Kisame chuckled, but it sounded garbled due to the sphere of water around him. As the water dropped away, the mist ninja said, Impressive, if I hadn't used my junsai, that would have toasted me quite a bit. Even with my junsai, the art of the water shield, you still nearly overwhelmed me. Impressive, you've become stronger. Uzumaki Naruto chuckled as he clenched both fists, flashing a devil-may-care grin at the Akatsuki ninja. Thanks for the vote of confidence, but it won't make me go easy on you. Hoshigaki Kisame grinned a feral smile at the 9 tails. A blue chakra aura flared around him. His yellow eyes glared predatorily at Naruto, his sharp teeth glistening in the light. Then, I won't hold back either. Ferocity of the shark. Can Naruto make a comeback? 4x. Banshee's Gorge, Eastern Highlands, Wind Country. The full moon shined brightly upon the arid, barren, and mountainous land that comprised the eastern portion of the Wind Country. Right now, the 10 ninja of the Leaf were spending the night in one of the few passes that led to the central portion of the country. Although there were some valleys full of sweltering heat and smothering sand amongst the highlands, they paled in size when compared to the larger deserts beyond the eastern highlands. Fortunately for travelers, some small rivers and lakes were located near these passes, allowing for less experienced travelers to survive. Nomads, small rodents, scavengers, and hardy vegetation were common in the eastern highlands. The pass that the leaf ninja were spending the night in was known as Banshee's Gorge. It was called this because when the wind passed through, which was quite often, a high-pitched, howling shriek was created, like the sound of a banshee howling. The leaf ninja were currently sitting on a large ledge that overlooked the deep gorge. Also, 3 tightly bound knapsacks were sitting beside them. They were large enough to hold a human, and for good reason. The bodies of Orochimaru, Itachi, and Kabuto lay within them. Kiba grimaced as he held his arms together, his teeth chattering together. Dang it, it's freaking cold here. A muffled, rough, from inside his jacket caused the Chunin to scowl. Darn it, Akamaru, you've got my jacket and fur. Of course you're warm. Hinata slightly smiled. Even though it seemed like Kiba and Akamaru were arguing, it was lighthearted in nature, but it was true. Tonight was going to get very cold, especially in the Banshee's Gorge. As the wind continued to howl, Hinata cringed. It sounded like a monster screaming. Neji suddenly dropped down at them from above. His face was sullen. No good. I've looked everywhere within a 5-mile radius. There aren't any caves or caverns around here. Shikamaru sighed ruefully. Well, that's not good. It's only going to get colder, and the wind chill doesn't help at all. The concerned Chunin grumbled. They hadn't dealt with this problem on their way here. They had camped for the night in the relatively warm marshes of the nearby river country. The next day, which was this day, they had crossed the border and crossed the eastern highlands. By the time the sun had set, they had reached Sanagakure. Now, they were going backwards, but Shikamaru didn't know if spending the night in such an unforgiving environment was a good idea. Maybe they should have spent the night in Sanagakure. A gust of wind blew by, bringing with it its characteristic shriek. Ino grimaced as she clutched her arms. Man, I'm freezing. Sakura breathed heavily, her breath condensing in midair. I've got goosebumps. Inner Sakura. I know exactly who can warm me up, if only Sasuke was here. Rock Lee's ears pricked. He quickly shifted a glance at Maida Guy. Guy smiled as he flashed Lee a thumbs up. The look in his eyes said it all. Go for it. Do not worry, Sakura-chan, boasted Lee as he leapt to his feet. Neji sighed out of exasperation. Not now, Lee. Save any energy for keeping yourself warm. Lee snorted as he confidently replied, but I'm going to help us all get warm. If we can't find a cavern. He got into his iron fist combat stance. Then I'll make one. Konoha Hasaya Shige. Leaf smashing kick. Rock Lee leapt into the air and slammed his foot, heel first, into the cliff. Ka-rak. The impact of Lee's kick caused a shockwave to pass through the rock, pulverizing it into smaller pebbles and fine powder. The pebbles began to fall away, revealing the cavern Lee had created with his own foot. The leaf ninjas, save for Guy, blanched at the sight of Lee's handiwork, or should I say footwork? Sakura smiled afterwards. Wow, nice work, Lee. Lee flashed a knowing grin to Guy, who gave him a congratulatory thumbs up. As for Hitaki Kakashi and Jiraiya, Kakashi's mind remained in contemplation as he remained perched upon a rocky spire, his body situated into a crouch. Jiraiya, who leaned against the base of the spire in question jutted upward from the top of a cliff, spoke. Let me ask you again, how did the battle go? We won, if that's what you mean, replied Kakashi, his voice deadpan in nature. Jiraiya's eyebrow twitched. I know that. How is the village? What are the total casualties? How's the 5th and the other leaf shinobi? Kakashi sighed. His voice droned on as he remembered the events of 3 days ago. Well, if you want me to be specific. 4x. Kakashi's flashback. 3 days ago. Uzumaki Naruto's house. Konohagakure, Fire Country. Hitaki Kakashi sighed as he quietly opened the door to Naruto's house. Naruto had arrived at home rather late last night, but then again, after going to a student reunion at the Ninja Academy, hosted by none other than Iruka, the copy ninja wasn't surprised. A reason to get together with old friends and allies wasn't one to pass up. Kakashi stepped inside, glancing around. The one-room house, although that room was large enough to hold a bed, a bookcase, a table, and a refrigerator, was messy. Some scrolls were on the floor around the bookcase. The covers and sheets on the bed were ruffled. Kakashi checked the fridge. Nothing but canisters of ramen and a carton of milk. He checked the milk. He immediately sweat dropped at the sight of a moldy hand reaching out of the carton's top. Yep, it's spoiled. As he closed the top and tossed the carton into the trash, he remembered that Naruto had been away for 3 years. Of course his place would be in disarray. Strange though, considering how relatively early it was, Naruto should have still been sleeping. A piece of paper caught his eye. It was on Naruto's bed. Kakashi picked it up and read it. He suddenly paled. Oh no, if this is, then? Naruto. Kakashi immediately burst away from the house. Slam. He immediately ran headlong into the chest of the taller Jiraiya. The legendary Sannin looked down at the Jonin with a measure of annoyance. You seem rushed. He quickly swapped the piece of paper in Kakashi's hand and read it. 4x. Uzumaki Naruto. We have the Kazekage, also known as Gaara of the desert. He possesses a demon like you. We want it. If you do not come to Sanagakure immediately, he will suffer a most unfortunate fate. You have 3 days to get here. We shall be waiting for you outside the hidden sand village. When you arrive, the 9 tails will be ours at last. Akatsuki. 4x. Rather than gasp or pale, Jiraiya's eyes narrowed. As I thought. I've been receiving words from my informants that Akatsuki was about to make its move, but so soon? I must admit even I'm surprised, but with the recent kidnapping of the Kazekage, it should be obvious. This is a very troublesome incident, said Kakashi, his voice stern and serious. We have to report this to the Hokage-sama. Kaboom! The southern wooden wall of the Hidden Leaf Village suddenly erupted into fiery flames. Kakashi and Jiraiya paled as alarms sounded throughout the village. Kakashi sputtered, Akatsuki? Perhaps, to distract us from Naruto, replied Jiraiya with a sense of conclusiveness. They don't want any leaf ninja to follow. As a multitude of leaf shinobi began rushing toward the site of the explosion, Jiraiya said, I'm going to notify Tsunade that the village is under attack. Repel the invaders if you can. Kakashi nodded as Jiraiya leapt on the rooftops toward the Hokage's palace. I wonder who came to attack us. As Kakashi turned around to go towards the site of the attack, he saw someone coming towards his position. It was a muscular man with a lean build. He wore brown camouflage sweatpants, and his brown hair was greasy and unkempt. 2 katanas were strapped to his back. Kakashi stared straight into the man's red eyes. That's when the man stopped on the rooftop on the opposite side of Naruto's house. Kakashi frowned. So I thought correctly, you're a Nukenin? Kakashi the copy ninja. It is an honor to finally face you, said the Nukenin. The name's Blaze. The copy ninja sighed out of slight pity. Akatsuki had sent leftovers to hold the leaf down. Did they think this lowly of the leaf? I suggest you retreat. You're not in my league. Blaze merely smiled as he drew both of his katanas and held them tightly. He roared, Fuyahasaki, Fireblade. Both katanas became alight with red fire. Kakashi paled. This technique, a mere Nukenin shouldn't be capable of an advanced jutsu like this. The copy ninja leapt back as the Nukenin swung at him. The brown-haired missing nin smirked. We may be Nukenin, but we are the cream of the crop. The 100 Nukenin that have invaded this village are all of the Chunin and Jonin level, and let me tell you this. Blaze grinned maliciously as the flames danced on his blades. We will not be so easily defeated as the Nukenin known as Zabuza. This statement, oddly enough, didn't faze Kakashi. The leaf ninja merely replied, tougher than Zabuza you say? Well, if that's the case? Kakashi shifted his headband, revealing his left eye, the Sharingan. Then I'll have to be serious, won't I? 4x. Let us move on to a different battle now. 4x. Naruto's flashback. Earlier that morning, outside Sanagakure, Wind Country. As Kisame dispelled his Junsai, Naruto frowned. He had to take a few things into account. For one, Kisame was a former mist ninja, and, according to the pervert Sennin, he had, like Momochi Zabuza, once been a part of the Mist's 7 legendary swordsmen. Secondly, his techniques were primarily water and mist-based. Third, his Samahata blade was capable of cutting through his chakra. Inwardly, Naruto grimaced. Man, of all the guys to start out against. Scared? No way. You sure seem scared. Perhaps you are merely poultry? RRR, growled Naruto as his chakra began to glow. Bring it on, fish face. Kisame grinned as he performed a set of katas. My pleasure. Suiryuden no Jutsu, Water Dragon Blast. A great rumbling sensation was felt in the ground. Naruto blinked out of confusion before paling at the sight of a watery dragon erupting from the ground. The rumbling in the ground had been Kisame bringing up the necessary water for the jutsu from an underground river. As the watery dragon roared at Naruto, the leaf ninja concentrated chakra in his feet. He quickly leapt away from where he stood. Moments later, the watery dragon crashed into the ground, creating a massive splash of water. The moment Naruto landed, a deathly cold voice came from behind. Gotcha. Naruto didn't even need to look back to know that it was Kisame behind him. He quickly jumped forward as the Akatsuki ninja swung his Samahata blade. Splick. Naruto cringed as the tip of the blade cut through the back of his right calf. A ragged inch-long cut was now visible. As he landed 20 yards away from Kisame, he winced again. Crap. This isn't an ordinary cutting wound. Your genius astounds me. Naruto bit back an angry retort as he stood. No time for bantering. Just heal it, or else we're both toast. You're the only one who'll perish by the end of this day. Although the comment sounded like another insult, Naruto could tell that the demon fox was slightly nervous about what Akatsuki had planned. After all, they didn't even know what they planned to with Gaara. Who knows what they had up their sleeve? Naruto scowled as he glared at Kisame, who had a self-satisfied smirk on his face. Hey, now you've experienced the teeth of Samahata firsthand. Last time, I merely cut your chakra, now I gave you a wound. I sincerely hope it feels like your flesh is burning. Naruto was silent, and then he chuckled as his scowl turned to a grin. Kisame arched an eyebrow out of confusion. You snapped? No, I'm just waiting for you to stop this crappy intimidation act, because it isn't gonna work on me, boasted Naruto as he performed a set of katas. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto split off into 30 shadow clones. All of them began performing katas as they shouted, now die. Konohito no Jutsu. Leaf cords. Kisame blanched as large strands of leaves, all tied together to each other, forming leafy ropes, erupted from the sleeves of all 30 Narutos. Before he could react, they wrapped and bound him tightly, forcing him to drop Samahata. The Naruto clones leapt forward, preparing to strike at Kisame with a flurry of punches and kicks. Oddly enough, Kisame wasn't feeling any fear. Instead, he smiled. He quickly wrestled one hand free and performed katas with one hand. The Narutos blanched. They hadn't seen katas being performed with one hand since Haku. Kisame roared, Kirito no Jutsu. Knives of the mist. Mist suddenly coagulated around his hands, forming razor-sharp knives on his fingers. The leafy strands were cut by the sharp weapons, allowing Kisame to break free. He launched 30 knives. 29 Narutos burst into smoke. Kisame frowned. Where was the real one? He sensed chakra behind him. Kisame whirled around to see Naruto in midair, holding onto the hilt of Samahata. Let's see how much you like it. The mist ninja smirked as he made one hand seal, the sign of the tiger. He then yelled, Sasu. Shark's teeth suddenly erupted from the hilt, piercing through Naruto's hands. However, much to Kisame's shock, the boy didn't let go. That kid's got guts. It'll take more than a stupid bite to get me to let go, roared Naruto as he threw the blade at Kisame. The mist ninja grimaced as the blade slashed past his right shoulder, but he managed to grab the hilt in time. The teeth had retracted the moment Naruto had released Samahata. Kisame grimaced as he watched the kid angrily lick his bloody hands. Although he hadn't been generating a large enough chakra aura to be a big target for Samahata, the wound on his shoulder had cut a portion of his chakra away. Kisame chuckled bitterly. Considering how much time had passed between the last time he saw the brat, the boy's chakra reserves had to have grown considerably, as well as his control, which explained how he had been able to keep his chakra from being completely cut from his wound on the calf. He had decreased the size of his chakra aura before the hit. And with his chakra being backed up by the massive stores of chakra possessed by the 9 tails, Kisame smirked. Looks like I'll have to finish this fight now. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 4 Narutos stood in the place of 1. Naruto smirked. The nifty thing about having a demon inside your body. It gave you a lot of chakra to mess around with. You'll rue the day you start taking me for granted. Nag, is that all you do? Considering it's all I can do in this miserable prison, yes. Naruto twitched. Smart Alec. Snot-nosed punk. Ooh, I'm so AFRIAD. Making a mental note to pay back Kyuubi. Somehow, in the future, Naruto's mind returned to the task at hand. The 4 Narutos pulled out 1 kunai knife each. Kisame merely performed another set of katas. Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu. Water clone. Water came up from the ground, becoming 3 different copies of the former ninja of the mist. Before Naruto did anything else, Kisame performed another set of katas. Now, Kirigakure no Jutsu. The art of hiding in the mist. As a cloud of mist covered the area, Akatsuki and the imprisoned Gaara watched on. Akira chuckled. This has been quite entertaining. Kisami's chakra is going to run low soon, yeah. The kid has a lot more, so that's why Kisami's going to finish this, yeah, said Deidara. Kumorimaru snorted. I just wish he'd hurry up and finish. What would you rather do? See a demon vessel fight to pass the time, or wait under the hot sun to pass the time? Sarcastically replied Akira. Gaara was silent. He was too absorbed in watching Naruto fight. He was interested in how much the boy had grown since their fight 3 years ago. Quote. Naruto paled. He remembered this technique. Zabuza had used it to hide flawlessly from Kakashi and Team 7 in their first C-rank mission to the Land of the Waves. Officially, it was a C-rank. And officially, it was an A-rank mission. It rendered almost everything invisible to the eyes. Fortunately for Naruto, Kisame was not a former member of the Kirigakure Anbu. Although Kisame was capable of hunting by sound, his auditory acuity was not as great as the demons. Unfortunately for Naruto, he didn't know that, so he forced himself to be cautious. Okay, time to get creative. Moments later, one of the shadow clones was struck. Before he disappeared in a puff of smoke, the clone stuck his kunai knife into the eye of his attacker. The water clone was defeated. A puff of smoke and a mass of water was all that was left of them. Naruto kept his ears open. Another Naruto was struck by a water clone. This time, he was unable to strike back. Naruto grimaced. 2 on 3. He closed his eyes as he pulled out another kunai knife. He had to use his ears here. Okay, where are you? Would it be helpful if I said, Marco? Naruto's scowl was his reply. He now regretted informing Kyuubi of some human games and customs. He continued to concentrate. Then, he threw one knife to the immediate area in front of him, and he threw the second one behind him. Splashes of water greeted his ears. He opened his eyes with a smile. He had gotten the last 2 water clones. Yes, hey, not bad, but while you've been striking at my clones, I've been preparing for 2 knockout blows. Cap Pajugan, art of the demonic water bullets. Naruto gulped. He quickly performed a set of hand seals, roaring, Narukaseki no Jutsu. Underworld barrier. A ghostly skull suddenly appeared above Naruto, flaring with dark energy. It then spewed black and blue fire, forming a protective sphere around Naruto. The bullets erupted from the thick, dense fog. They were made of water, and they had the visage of a demon on their tips. They collided with the fiery barrier, evaporating into puffs of steam. From within the depths of the mist, the watery bullets were being fired from the fingers of Kisami's right hand. He was busy performing katas with his left hand. Okay, this'll finish it. Sakamaku no Jutsu, surging waves. His cheeks suddenly bulged outward. He spewed forth a stream of blue water, creating a massive wave that roared through the cloud of mist. Naruto paled at the sound of rushing water. Oh man, this is bad. The watery waves slammed into his barrier of fire, dousing it completely. Naruto gagged as he was surrounded by water, tossing him every which way. He underwent an extreme case of vertigo, losing his sense of direction. Bam! Naruto groaned as he crashed into the ground, his lungs losing their breath. As he tried to get to his feet, his muscles crying in protest, a voice penetrated his ears. Suiru no Jutsu. Naruto's face turned white as the water around him coagulated upon him, trapping him within a sphere of water. He looked up to see Kisami's hand sticking into the sphere. A cocky smirk was pasted onto the mist ninja's light blue face. Kisame sneered. Art of the water prison. Game, set, and match. Fear of a demon. Gaara's kidnappers step in. 4x. Banshee's Gorge, Eastern Highlands, Wind Country. Even as the wind howled through the massive canyon that was the Banshee's Gorge, The Leaf Ninja were sleeping silently, with the exception of Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Guy. Jiraiya remained silent as Guy explained how several of the attacking Nukenin had given members of the Akamichi and Aburame clans a run for their money before he and his team had arrived to help. Those Nukenin, they were extraordinary. Although not quite at the level of Akatsuki, Hokage-sama, or the legendary Sannin, they were tough enough. Even my team and I were pushed to our limits. I see, muttered Jiraiya in reply. Very interesting. Akatsuki was clearly adamant about keeping the Leaf away from Sunagakure. Still, it was fortunate you managed to catch up with Naruto, said Kakashi as he read from Icha Icha Paradise in an attempt to keep his mind occupied. Jiraiya was silent as he fingered at his shoulder wound. His mind began to wander to the events of 3 days ago. Yes it was. 4x. Jiraiya's flashback. 3 days ago. Hokage's palace, Konohagakure, Fire Country. Jiraiya entered the doors of Tsunade's office with purpose in his stride. Judging from the lack of activity at the desk, she hadn't heard of the attack yet. Probably because she was asleep amongst a pile of paperwork. Jiraiya's sweat dropped. Wonderful. He took a deep breath. He roared, "Wake up, you flat-chested wench." Tsunade immediately sat up, her drowsy eyes alight with fury. "Shut your mouth, you perverted lecher. Now that I've got your attention, let me explain," cracked Jiraiya with a smile. However, he immediately became serious. "Our village is under attack." The blonde-haired Hokage's eyes widened as she paled. Under attack? By whom? Sound ninjas? Has Orochimaru returned? No, gravely replied Jiraiya. Akatsuki has sent Nukenin to attack the Leaf, to prevent us from following Naruto. Tsunade arched an eyebrow out of surprise. She didn't know about the note. What do you mean? Where's that idiot? Jiraiya handed her the note, which she promptly read. Her skin color whitened by several shades. Good lord, that stupid idiot. He ran off to Sunagakure, didn't he? He did. That's why I'm going after him. The Godem glared quietly at her former teammate. What of the Leaf? Judging by your demeanor, these are no ordinary renegades attacking us. What if Konoha were to need your help? The Leaf's denizens are strong. They'll do fine without me. Naruto, however, is off to face Akatsuki alone, and he is the carrier of the 9 tails. He cannot be allowed to fall into their hands. Tsunade remained silent as she stared intently into the eyes of her former teammate. The reason was logical to be sure, but she knew it to be more. An ironic chuckle escaped her mouth as she uttered, "The idiot's grown on us, hasn't he?" Jiraiya merely snorted in response. "He's also a bum and a slacker. Protect the Leaf, Tsunade." With that said, Jiraiya left the palace, leaving Tsunade alone. Tsunade chuckled as she removed her green robes, standing in her battle uniform, the same outfit she had worn when she and Jiraiya had fought Orochimaru over 3 years ago. I shall. She left to join the fight. 4x. As Jiraiya hopped from rooftop to rooftop, his eyes and ears took note of the battles being fought. Even his nose took note of what was occurring. The smell of burning wood, the stench of spilt blood, the aroma of fresh-cut flowers being sliced by stray shuriken. His eyes momentarily caught a glimpse of Kakashi, who was using 2 kunai knives to fend off the fiery blades of the Nukenin blaze. Jiraiya sighed. He would offer his help just once. He performed a set of hand seals as Blaze kicked Kakashi in the stomach, sending the Leaf Jonin to the ground. Mokuton. Kikuzunaifu. Fragments of wood from a wrecked house suddenly floated into the air. Jiraiya used his chakra to sharpen them into knives. Wood element. Wooden knives. At those words, the wooden projectiles went flying at the Nukenin. Slash. Blaze turned around, using his fiery blades to utterly burn through the wooden knives. The Nukenin smirked. It'll take more than that to defeat me. Splick. Indeed, said Kakashi as he removed the kunai knife he had used to stab Blaze in his back. The Nukenin gagged as his blades lost their fiery aura. Blood leaked from his back as he fell to the roof, dead as a doornail. The copy ninja glanced at Jiraiya, but the Sannin was already gone. Kakashi paid it no mind. He had a village to protect. He quickly cleaned his kunai knife, pocketed it, and went off to find another battle to join. By this time, Jiraiya had left Konohagakure. End flashback. 4x. Naruto's flashback. Earlier that morning, outside Sunagakure, Wind Country. The mist was dissipating. Akira flipped a page of his Come Come Paradise booklet with a tongue before saying, "Looks like the battle's over. No one's died, yeah. I can still feel two different sources of chakra, yeah." Deidara shifted her eyes toward where the mist was thickest. Ogi Daimyo uttered, "The question is who the defeated one is." Shu nodded quietly out of concurrence. Kumorimaru, Hiroto, Itachi, Sasori, and Gaara merely watched on in silence. The mist completely dissipated, revealing Naruto, imprisoned in the water prison of Kisame. Hoshigaki Kisame chuckled as he stared down at the boy imprisoned within his sphere of water. "Hey, the mighty demon vessel falls. I must say, you put up quite a fight. Ooh, a member of Akatsuki is complimenting you. You're moving on up in the world." "Not now," thought Naruto as he glared at Kisame. He had to keep himself controlled. He couldn't afford to black out or suffocate inside the sphere of water. All he could do was glare at the enemy that had imprisoned him. Kisame smiled a toothy grin at the demon vessel. "Hey, I bet you're eager to know why we're doing this. Our plan is actually for the benefit of our kind." Naruto arched an eyebrow to show his confusion. In a world of peace, shinobi will be useless. As technology advances, artificial weapons will replace ninja as tools of war. For instance, the River Country, arguably the most technologically advanced country today, uses an army and soldiers instead of ninja to settle their conflicts. Kisame sighed ruefully as he thought about it. A world where ninja are obsolete, it is a world that you should abhor. We're doing something to prevent that. Naruto's face scrunched together, telegraphing his disbelief. Our plan is to unleash the 9 tails and the 1 tail, and our leader already possesses the no tail, the 3 tails, and the 5 tails. We shall unleash them. Chaos will be wreaked upon the world. Kisame smiled at the thought of the rampaging demons. Armies will prove useless. Only the strongest shall survive the havoc, and the ninja will forever be necessary. That is our goal. To save the world, it must be destroyed. I like this plan. Shut up. Naruto glared angrily at Kisame, who leered down at him with a smirk. We're actually saving the existence of shinobi, something you should be perfectly fine with. Now if you don't mind, I'm going to release this prison so I can take you the obsidian seal. I'd rather you be awake when the demons are unleashed instead of out cold. Naruto was silent. Then, he chuckled, his voice echoing through the water of the sphere. He didn't care, he'd be getting out soon anyway. You dunce. If you really think I'm going to go along with such a plan, then you're even more stupid than Sasuke. I'm a ninja of Konoha, and I'm not going to let you win. Kisame was silent before he sighed. A pity. He performed some katas with his free hand. Kirito no jutsu. Misty knives formed on his fingers. I'm going to make you bleed till you're out cold, but you won't die, so be grateful. Naruto smirked. Hey, by the way, did you know you only got 2 of my clones? Kisame arched an eyebrow out of confusion. Choom. The third Naruto shadow clone erupted from the sand behind Kisame. The Mist Ninja couldn't turn around in time before the clone slammed his foot into the back of the Mist Ninja, but to do that, he had go through the Samahata. The blade shattered into 2 from the force of the blow. Kisame gagged as the collision sent him flying forward, breaking his connection with the water prison. Naruto smirked as his third, and now last, clone stood beside him. Kisame grimaced as he stood. That brat, he broke Samahata. Impressive. Using the mist so that your clone can hide in the sand while you garnered my full attention. Still, that doesn't change the fact that I'm going to defeat you. Blah blah blah, I've heard it all before. Naruto's chakra began to flow around him, and it began to glow red. From afar, Itachi's eyes narrowed. That red chakra, the chakra of the 9 tails. Kisame blinked as Naruto's eyes turned red. As his body underwent a transformation, the result of him utilizing more chakra from the 9 tails than normal, he growled, "You just think you can dictate the fate of the world? Like it was your own little plaything." He grew fangs, and the whisker marks on his cheek became more prominent. Well, guess what, it's not your place to decide. The only Naruto clone suddenly appeared behind Kisame, using the Flying Thunder God technique, and latched onto his back. The Mist Ninja grimaced as he tried to shake the clone off. His chakra was getting low. Naruto snarled. With the changing of his chakra aura into a fox-like form, his transformation was complete. And if you think releasing demons on the world is a good idea, well, let me give you a demonstration of how fearsome a demon like Kyuubi can be. Ah, going to use the jutsu I taught you? He deserves it. For once, I agree. I like his plan, but I am not a tool for others. Let me feast on him. Will do, thought Naruto with a smirk. A murderer like Kisame deserved it anyway. Now, Ninpou, Raikanyueki. Spirit transfusion. Naruto charged at Kisame, who was inert thanks to the clone's hold on him. As Naruto charged, his right hand charged with a white glow. Then, he slammed the glowing hand onto Kisame's chest. Both the eyes of Naruto and Kisame became blank. Akira blinked out of confusion. What the heck just happened? Not sure, but I know of a similar technique, said Kumorimaru. It involves the spirit of the shinobi battling the spirit of his victim. A battle on the spiritual plane is different than that on this plane of reality. It comes down to the willpower of the individual. Then this battle will be interesting then, muttered Yagami Hiroto. 4x. Naruto's soul room. Kisame blinked as he looked around. There was nothing but darkness around him. Where'd the brat go? Where am I? A deep chuckling permeated the room. Kisame whirled around, trying to find the source of the chuckle. Who's there? Your worst nightmare. Kisame glared to his left to see a gate separating the room he was in from the outside. The one who had spoken was the leaf brat. You? Where am I? Naruto merely grinned. I told you, you're getting a taste of what Kyuubi is, or should I say it's the other way around? Naruto snickered as he walked away. What was about to befall Kisame, he didn't mind. Scum like Kisame didn't merit sympathy. Before Kisame could retort, the voice responsible for the deep chuckling spoke up again. Ah, I can't remember the last time I tasted anything. Even though you are only a spirit, I'm going to enjoy this. Kisame turned around to see the fang-filled maw of an orange demon fox roar at him, red eyes filled with furious hunger. Kisame tried to move, but he couldn't. Never before in his life had he felt such terrible, horrific fear. He thought of Akatsuki. He thought of their plan, to unleash the demons. He figured he might have stood a chance in such a world. After all, it had only taken the fourth to defeat the beast. But he was mistaken. The demon fox had been caught off guard. Had he truly wanted to, he could have evaded the Fuinjutsu Shiki Fujin, the demonic soul seal, of the Yondaime. How could he have miscalculated the strength of one of the 10-tailed demons? One last thought came to him. If Kyuubi was this strong as one of the tailed demons, then how strong was their leader, if he had defeated 3 of them? Kyuubi's mouth was upon him. Time to feed. Kyuubi smashed his teeth onto the body of the mist ninja. Ah, those were the last words Hoshigaki Kisame said before death claimed him. 4x. Outside Sanagakure, Wind Country. A startled gasp erupted from Kisame's mouth as his yellow eyes went wide. Naruto's eyes returned to normal as he removed his hand from the clothed chest of Kisame. The lifeless mist ninja slumped to the ground, dead. Naruto sighed as his body returned to normal. His only shadow clone disappeared in a cloud of smoke. The leaf ninja smiled as he looked at the dead Akatsuki member. I did it, I beat him. You make it sound like you won oh, what the devil do you humans call it? Lottery? That, I might as well have. I beat a member of Akatsuki. Lest you forget, there are 7 more members right behind you. Naruto's sweat dropped as he turned to face the 7 other Akatsuki members. They were all still sitting on the obsidian seal. Yeah, I get what you're saying. A first. Stupid fox. Besides, you didn't even thank me for letting you eat that guy's soul. It tasted horrible, almost as bad as the flesh of an oni. Something is better than nothing. Let me put it in terms your puerile mind can understand. Would you rather eat nothing, or eat excrement? Point taken. Another first. Shut your mouth. Upon the obsidian seal, Akira chuckled heartily. Hee, that kid's got some chops. He killed Kisame, impressive, muttered Hiroto. The advantage of having a tailed demon living in your body, I'm sure, yeah, said Deidara, who glanced down at the mouth in the palm of her left hand. Hey, it's salivating out of anticipation. Akasune Sasori suddenly stood, removing his straw hat. I'll face him now. Probably for the best. Unlike Kisame, you tend to go all out at the very beginning of any fight, said Kumorimaru as she scratched her scalp with one hand. You don't like to take chances. Indeed, Sasori smiled as he stepped off the seal. Kumorimaru pumped some more chakra into the seal to compensate for the loss of Sasori. Itachi suddenly glanced at Deidara. Let's not take chances. 2-on-1 will be a safer path to tread. Deidara smiled as she stood and walked over to Sasori, removing her straw hat. Hey, safer is better, yeah. As both of Gaara's kidnappers walked towards Naruto, Shu gave more chakra into the seal to make up for Deidara. Speaking of Gaara, the Cage frowned. The clay user, and according to village records, the other is Akasune Sasori. Let's see how you fare now, Naruto. Naruto frowned as he watched Deidara and Sasori advance toward him. Great, more fighting. You expected less? Naruto ignored the Kyuubi as the two Akatsuki members stopped 20 yards away from him. The Leaf Ninja got into an offensive battle stance, ready to fight again. Sasori's strands of black hair strayed in the wind as he clutched his cloak. I'm not the type to procrastinate. With a simple movement, he removed his Akatsuki cloak and the handkerchief covering his mouth. Naruto paled. What the? Sasori's body was changed beyond belief. His entire lower jaw was made of wood, separated into 3 different segments. Even his teeth weren't real. Strips of wood were grafted into his ribs, and wooden panels covered his abdomen, back, spine, shoulders, arms, and legs. Another oddity was the large scorpion tail protruding from the back of his spinal cord, stretching on for several more feet. He then finished his sentence. So let's end this quickly, shall we? Naruto paled. Your body? I personally changed myself into a puppet, human hybrid. I still possess my nervous system, my brain, my inner organs, my blood system, and my inner coil system. But the advantages of this new state are quite numerous. I was the greatest puppet maker of the sand. I am a personal testament to that fact. Naruto gaped. You were once part of the sand? Sasori nodded. Naruto's shock was replaced by anger. Why'd you abandon your village? I'll put it in simple terms, tersely said Sasori. My puppets, in the hand of a skilled puppeteer, would lay waste to any foe. I became disenchanted. For what purpose did I make puppets if there were no strong opponents to test them against? So that's why. Naruto's frown deepened into a furious scowl. You think that you'll have a purpose for making puppets again, because a world overrun by chaos and demons is going to need ninja with powerful weapons. Right? Sasori grinned. You're smart. Perhaps fighting against you will be worth my while after all. You? Worth his while? You have no worth to speak of. Uzumaki Naruto snorted. He glared at Deidara. HMPH, while we're at it, what's your story? HMPH, grunted Deidara as she flexed her fingers. My story doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, yeah. I only do what I please to do. If I feel like slaughtering someone, I'll do it. If I feel like creating a catastrophe for a ninja village, I'll do it. When you have such power at your fingertips, goals don't seem so meaningful. I merely joined Akatsuki because it presented something new, yeah. Deidara smiled as she pulled open her Akatsuki cloak, revealing 24 tan duffel bags strapped to the inner folds of it. And with my explosive clay, I'll make sure you're brought down, yeah. Naruto snorted. So, you're willing to inflict all this suffering, just for the sake of doing it? You miserable scum. The Leaf Ninja sneered as he pulled out 2 shuriken. I'm going to kill you both. He threw both shuriken at Sasori and Deidara. Deidara calmly reached into a duffel bag and pulled out a small portion of clay, which was eaten by the mouth in her palm. Less than a second later, it was spit back out. Now that it was mixed with her chakra, it had become a potent explosive. With a clenching of her fist, she molded it into a bird and sent it flying at the shuriken aimed for her. The throwing star was vaporized in a small explosion. As for the shuriken aimed at Sasori, he sliced it apart with tiny knives that jutted outward from his fingers. The former sand ninja narrowed his eyes as he said, "Now it's my turn." He stuck his tail into the ground and used it to vault himself towards the fox boy at high speed. Naruto paled. That guy's fast. The understatement of the year. Naruto quickly leapt backwards to avoid Sasori's kick. Nevertheless, a cut appeared on his cheek. A small knife had jutted outward from the puppet master's wooden big toe, allowing his kick to connect. Crap, his entire body's one big bag of tricks. I can't let him get close to me. Naruto quickly leapt up to avoid the puppeteer's next attack. Sasori aimed his arm up at Naruto as a panel opened up. Spring-loaded needles were launched out of the panel and toward Naruto. The genin gaped. He couldn't dodge in time. All he could do was cross his arms to prevent any major wounds. The skin on his sides, arms, and legs were cut open, letting blood flow freely from them. He let his arms down in time to see a clay eagle flying at him. Naruto gulped as the explosive neared him. Boom! Deidara chuckled as clay rained down from the fiery cloud. Hey, hope he's not burnt too badly, yeah. Sasori glared at her. Deidara silently turned around, looking at what Sasori was really glaring at. Naruto. Impressive, yeah, thought Deidara with a smile as she reached for more clay. Naruto panted as he wiped some of the blood that had leaked down to his hand. He had managed to use the flying thunder god in time. Dang it, Kisame was tough, but I can't handle two at once. Release me then. 2 on 2 is fair, right? Nice try. Can't blame me for trying. Sasori charged. Naruto prepared himself. Then, Futen. Gyrafusu. Wind element. Gale force. A sudden blast of wind suddenly struck Sasori, throwing him backwards. Deidara, Sasori, and Naruto all blinked. Heh, you bum. Haven't I told you before? Naruto suddenly smiled at the sound of that voice. He looked around to see none other than Jiraiya standing there. The member of the legendary Sannin finished by saying, if you're going to battle against superior numbers, bring allies. Might of the pervert Sennin, master and apprentice unite. 4x. Banshee's Gorge, Eastern Highlands, Wind Country. Neji's eyes opened up, his white eyes dilated so he could see better in the dark. The Jonin got to his feet, ignoring the howl of the gorge. It was a miracle the leaf ninja had fallen asleep here. He quietly walked towards the entrance of the cave, passing by the sleeping Chunin and Jonin. Well, there was one other Jonin that was awake beside him. Jiraiya, who only seemed asleep. His back was against the wall, eyes peering quietly on the 3 body bags that held the corpses of Orochimaru, Kabuto, and Itachi. The male Hyuga stepped outside into the cold night air, and he saw a familiar figure staring up at the full moon. A sigh escaped his lips. Hello, Hinata. Hinata didn't turn around. I thought I heard someone step outside. Neji stepped towards his cousin, his black hair fluttering in the wind. Naruto. That's who you're thinking about, isn't it? Hinata nodded. Why yes, Neji-san. I am worried about him. Neji smiled quietly as he stepped to her side. You don't need to worry about him, after all, he had enough chakra to use that flying thunder god technique. He's most likely in Konoha by now, and Tsunade's the best medical ninja around. Add Shizune and the other medical ninja in the village, and he'll be as good as new. I know that Neji-san, replied Hinata. Her gentle frame seemed so much more formidable under the green vest of the Chunin. Although she did not normally wear it, the battle in Konoha had required all of a shinobi's resources. That the vest had some armor plating inside it was also a factor. Her meek voice was barely louder than the wind. I was just thinking about the class reunion at the academy. Neji arched an eyebrow, that is, until he remembered the events that had occurred before the battle in Konoha. Oh, that? Neji let a small laugh escape his mouth. Naruto? Quite the clown, wasn't he? Yes, replied Hinata as a small blush came to her face. Even though Neji remembered Naruto's antics, she remembered it for a different reason. Naruto-kun was very funny indeed. Neji's smile faded as the gusts picked up, threatening to blow the two away. Let's get back inside the cave. These winds are too fierce. Okay, Neji-san. Quietly whispered Hinata as she followed her higher-ranking cousin into the cavern. Her mind would not leave the memory of that day. How close had it been? How close to her dream's realization? To be noticed by him? She smiled as she lay down to sleep. Naruto-kun. Hinata fell asleep with a smile on her face. 4x. Hokage's palace, Konohagakure, Fire Country. Tsunade walked into her office with all the grace of a crippled moose. She didn't even bother using the doorknob, she just punched through them to get in. She was too frickin' tired to care. Tsunade had exhausted almost all of her chakra trying to heal Naruto. Shizune had also succumbed to tiredness after expending most of her energy to heal Sasuke. Even though the boys were on their way to recovery, Konoha still had to be repaired. All the damage from the battle 3 days ago. Wait. Scratch that, it was past midnight. Technically, the battle 4 days ago. All the damage from the battle 4 days ago had to be repaired, and that meant more paperwork. Oh, how joyous. Tsunade just sat in her chair, looking at the mountain of paperwork she had to do. With an ungraceful plop, she laid her head down on the desk, causing the papers to scatter. She didn't care right now. She needed to sleep. Her mind started wonder as her body shut down for the night. 4x. Tsunade's flashback. 4 days ago. Konohagakure, Fire Country. Tsunade ran through the streets towards the closest battle site. Those who had advanced farthest into the village had to be dealt with first. Okay. They're very powerful enemies, so just because they're Nukenin doesn't mean I can underestimate them. She leapt onto the nearest rooftop, getting a better view of the area. The southwestern portion of the village's outer wall had been demolished, and several summoned creatures were running rampant. Some of the animals included lizards, rats, and hawks. Tsunade frowned. She had to even the odds. With a quick bite of her thumb, Tsunade quickly ran the blood along her arm. She leapt onto the ground below and slammed her hands onto the dirt. Kachiyose no Jutsu. The blood on Tsunade's arm shifted down onto the ground, forming a summoning circle. A bright flash of light emanated in the ground and the air. When it faded, Tsunade stood upon a gigantic slug that was colored white with blue vertical stripes. Katsuyu the Slug Queen. Katsuyu. Katsuyu's eyes stalks shifted so that the giant slug could see Tsunade. Yes? I'm going off to help another section of the village. Attack those summoned creatures. Understood. Tsunade jumped off of Katsuya as the slug slithered over to the attacking summoned beasts. The first creature that she encountered was a large rat, which hissed and fired a shower of fangs from its maw. Katsuyu countered by dousing the fangs, and the rat, with a shower of acid. Tsunade smiled. Katsuyu would be able to hold her own. She quickly ran off to find a battle to join. After 1 minute of hopping over rooftops, she found one. A Nukenin wearing nothing but a brown bodysuit was fighting Team Guy. However, it was clear that black-haired Nukenin was in his element, all because of the wooden houses around him. Mokaton. Kazuhakuki. Over 100 pieces of wood suddenly floated into the air, revolving around him like protective shield. Wood element. Windy shower of wood. The 100 pieces suddenly split off into thousands of sharpened splinters, swirling around the area in a frenzied wind. Maeda, Guy and Lee both grabbed sections of a fallen roof to shield themselves from the splinters. 10-10. Who was a Chunin, used 2 nunchucks to defend herself, spinning them around at such a high speed that all splinters that came near her were pulverized. As for Neji, he alternated between leaping from hiding spot to hiding spot and using his Kaden to deflect incoming splinters. The Nukenin smiled. Pathetic? Worthless? Cowards? Is this the best the leaf has to offer? Well, it was at the point that Tsunade's fist slammed into his head. The Nukenin's skull was instantly pulverized. The force of the blow sent his body flying backwards, even as blood and brains trickled from his crushed head. Guy popped out of hiding, only to gape at the sight of Tsunade. Hokage-sama. Tsunade smiled. Her arms and face were bleeding. In order to get to the Nukenin, she had been forced to dive straight into the storm. Don't worry, it's nothing. Her hands glowed with green chakra. After several moments of waving her hands over her arms and face, the wounds had disappeared. 10-10 flushed as she bowed. Thank you, Hokage-sama, you saved us. Don't bother talking, quickly interrupted Tsunade. Our village is under attack by Nukenin sent by a dangerous organization known as Akatsuki. Guy and Neji's eyes widened. Lee and 10-10 merely looked confused, as they did not know the truth about Akatsuki just yet. As a Jonin, Neji, who hadn't encountered Akatsuki personally like Guy had, was privy to that information. Your mission is to protect Konoha, and I will help in this mission. We must keep the leaf safe from harm. Yes, ma'am. Guy, Neji, 10-10, and Lee all stood at attention. The fifth smirked. Shinobi, spread out. At those words, the 5 ninjas spread out to face Akatsuki's Nukenin. 4x. Naruto's flashback. Yesterday morning. Outside Sanagakure, Wind Country. Upon the obsidian seal, the 5 members of Akatsuki and Gaara watched silently as the new arrival advanced toward Naruto. Akira raised an eyebrow out of confusion. Who the heck's that dude? That is Jiraiya, replied Itachi. One of the 3 legendary leafs? Asked Kumorimaru out of surprise. Yes, answered Shu. Ogi Daimyo also spoke up. Not only that, but he is capable of summoning Gamma Bunta, the boss toad. 3 years ago, Gamma Bunta held his own against Shukaku the One-Tail, of all demons. With the help of the Fox Boy, that frog is a formidable opponent. Hiroto nodded quietly as he gazed at the old man walking towards Naruto. He seems old, but I assume he's much stronger than he appears. Itachi concurred. He is. After all, the last time he had met the Sannin, he had been forced to use his divine illumination technique in order to escape him. Let us see how he and the demon vessel fare against Deidara and Sasori. And all the while, Gaara silently watched on. 4x. Naruto smiled as Jiraiya stepped at his side. Yes, about time you got here. His lips contorted into a cocky grin. But then again, I was doing awesome without you. You probably shouldn't have wasted time coming here. Pow. Ow. Yelped Naruto as he rubbed a sore spot on his head. What was that for? For going off half-cocked, you pathetic ass. Roared Jiraiya, his fist clenched tightly. Well said. Naruto seethed. What gives you the right to yell at me? Because you're an idiot. Who rushed off to face an obviously superior enemy. Superior? Naruto snorted. Don't make me laugh. Meanwhile, Sasori and Deidara were sweat-dropping. The former sand ninja chuckled. My, such poor chemistry. All to our advantage, nonetheless. Deidara? Way ahead of you, yeah, replied Deidara as she reached into one of her bags of clay. The mouth in her left hand swallowed a good portion of the pliable substance. Hey, let's give those two a wake-up call, yeah. All the while, Jiraiya and Naruto were continuing their bickering. The Toad Sennin roared, you overeager fool. You really thought you could take Akatsuki on your own? Yeah, and I've already killed one. Ahem. Give credit where credit is due. Jiraiya snorted. Don't make me laugh, you pathetic liar. Naruto immediately pointed towards Kisami's body. Then started laughing. Jiraiya eyed the corpse, and his eyes widened. He remembered that man. He had encountered him over 3 years ago when Itachi had burned through his toad mouth enclosure technique with the divine illumination jutsu. He had possessed a blade that could cut through chakra. Impossible. This squirt beat him on his own? Naruto grinned, drinking in the pleasure he got from Jiraiya's stunned expression. Heh. Speechless, huh? Pardon my little interruption of this tirade, but you might want to dodge. Naruto looked around him to see hornet-shaped pieces of clay buzzing toward them at high speed. Naruto immediately grabbed Jiraiya's robes and yelled, Hiraishin no jutsu. Both master and apprentice disappeared in a yellow flash. The hornet projectiles all collided, exploding in a flash of red. Deidara smirked as she saw both of her targets in one piece, 10 yards away from the site of the explosion. Hey, they managed to evade my explosive clay hornets, yeah. Naruto grimaced as he let go of his teacher's robes. RRR. Why the heck are we fighting, you idiot? We have a fight to win, don't we? Agreed, muttered Jiraiya, swallowing his pride for once. I'll take the clay using female. Naruto smirked. Hey, I'll get the puppet guy. That girl seems boring anyway. Sasori smiled. Yes, it seems the demon vessel wishes to face me. And the legendary leaf wishes to face me, yeah. I wonder how my clay will perform against him, yeah. Uttered Deidara as her right hand ate clay from a large bag labeled C3. I'll try the 3rd level of potency. Naruto and Jiraiya suddenly split apart. Sasori and Deidara did the same. The fight had begun. Naruto quickly performed a set of katas as Sasori circled around him. Konohito no jutsu. Leafy cords immediately began encircling the former sand ninja. The man sneered as panels in his arms opened up, revealing knives that shredded the cords into nothingness. Pathetic. I shall rend you limb from limb, for I am the greatest master of puppet no jutsu in the world. And I will show you. He crouched down into his customary position. Why I am known as the Scorpion of the Red Sands, because I will make this desert red with your blood. Naruto smirked. You can try, and so I shall. With that said, Sasori's tail suddenly extended, lashing out at the leaf ninja. Naruto leapt up high into the air, only to suddenly find Sasori in front of him. Fast. Didn't you already think that? Tiny daggers popped out of Sasori's fingers, becoming claws that the former sand ninja used to strike at Naruto. The boy grimaced as the daggers slashed the side of his thigh, causing blood to spurt forth. Just as quickly, however, the fox boy grinned. Why? Because he had his hands on Sasori's left leg. Take this. Naruto heaved the sand ninja towards the ground. Akasune Sasori was not worried. His tail suddenly sped downward, slammed into the ground, and shot him backward up like a metal spring. One moment later, his knee met Naruto's gut. Oof! Grunted Naruto as the air escaped his lungs. Seconds later, he met the ground, causing the sand and dust around him to fly up. Ow! A real down-to-earth experience. Shut up. I only hope it took your ego down a few notches. It was getting too noisy hearing your boastful thoughts 24/7. Shut up. No witty comeback? How surprising, yet fortuitous for my ears. Shut up. Sasori chuckled as his tail twitched. I've gotten excited. Please make this battle worth my while. 4x. Boom. Jiraiya leapt to his side as a bird-shaped piece of clay crashed into the ground where he had been moments ago. A shower of sand and dirt was kicked up. Deidara quickly threw 4 more pieces of clay, shaped like pigeons. Come now. Don't run all the time, yeah. It makes the fight too boring, yeah. I'll give you a fight, muttered Jiraiya as he performed a set of katas while on the move. Finally, he yelled, Abushita no Jutsu. Palm of the frog's tongue. He thrust both palms forward, and from each one materialized the tongue of a frog. Deidara directed the 4 clay pigeons toward Jiraiya. One of the tongues shot forward, swatting the 4 pigeons. As the pigeons exploded, taking one tongue with it, the other tongue grabbed Deidara, wrapping itself around her body. The former stone ninja grimaced as she was slammed into the ground repeatedly. Jiraiya smiled. Easy so far, but this can't be all she has to offer. Boom. Jiraiya paled as his second tongue exploded. Wah? Deidara broke through the remnants of the tongue and landed on the ground, chuckling softly. Heh. When I threw the pigeons, I also threw tiny chunks of clay shaped like winged ants, yeah. They got onto your tongue when it appeared and blew it up, yeah. Deidara calmly reached into one of her bags. This one was labeled C4. Now to kick it up a notch, yeah. A large stream of clay suddenly shot out of her mouth, formulating into the visage of an eagle. Performing a quick set of katas, Deidara enlarged the 1-foot-tall figure into a 10-foot-tall beast with a 20-foot wingspan. She hopped onto the eagle as it flapped its wings, taking to the sky. Jiraiya grimaced as Deidara took to the clouds. This just made things more difficult. 4x. Naruto barely managed to dodge 2 knives that were sent flying at him by a spring-loaded launcher implanted into the wood in Sasori's thigh. The living puppet immediately followed this up with another attack. 2 wooden panels in his shoulder blades suddenly opened, revealing 2 more spring-loaded launchers that flipped upward, aiming over his shoulders and at the boy. Naruto gulped as thin needles were launched from the launchers, aimed straight at his arms and legs. He quickly slammed his hands onto the ground, roaring, Hibashira no Jutsu. A column of fire rose in front of Naruto, albeit a smaller one. There was no need to waste chakra needlessly. The needles were vaporized. Sasori did not follow up with another attack. Naruto chuckled. Having second thoughts? I could torch your wooden body without any trouble at all. Hibashira no Jutsu. Sasori was silent as he felt a rumbling occur beneath the ground beneath him. Without hesitation, he leapt to the side a mere moment before the ground he had once stood on erupted into a column of flames. As he landed, the former sand ninja chuckled. Puppets are so misunderstood. Now the villain gives a story of why he does what he does. How cliché. Shut up. Your retorts have become boring. Where's the pizzazz? Most people think that puppets are just flammable tools, useful for only distraction and surprise. But it is that very misconception that drove me to become the greatest puppet maker. A sneer formed on his transformed mouth. It is also why I was driven to turn my body into this. To prove a point? Mocked Naruto. Sasori's eyes narrowed, forming a dangerous glare. For the practicality of it all, his sneer formed into a smirk at the sight of Naruto's raised eyebrow. Think about it. Most ninjas use their chakra for ninjutsu spells, genjutsu illusions, and physical taijutsu, and through battle, their chakra is slowly, yet surely drained. Usually, most ninjas cannot battle longer than 15 minutes with the continuous use of their chakra, but that is not true for me. Naruto snorted. What makes you think that? I know that because of what I've become, replied the Akatsuki member. Although I have altered my body, I am still capable of moving with my own bones, muscles, and skin. It requires no chakra on my part to move. I only require chakra to open the wooden panels on my body, and since a majority of my projectiles are loaded into spring-loaded launchers, I don't require any chakra to fire them. I only use chakra to activate my weapons, to aim my launchers, and in this case, to move like lightning. 2 wooden panels on the side of each calf suddenly popped open, revealing metal wheels that slid down to the sides of Sasori's feet. A wooden platform joined the protective inner hubcaps of the wheels on each foot together, and it served as a platform for Sasori's feet to stand on. In essence, he had now formed 2 wheel skates. And last but not least, a wooden panel embedded into his very spine opened up, revealing a katana that he pulled out with one hand. Sasori grinned maliciously as licked the flat side of the blade with his tongue. Chakra. To use my soul ninjutsu technique. Naruto blinked. He uses a ninjutsu technique? You must be deaf. He just said that. Shut up. Bantering with you has become dull. It's a fairly common technique among high-ranking sand ninja, but it is very deadly, and with a blade as a focusing tool, it becomes even more so. Add my speed, and it shall become apparent that this fight is futile. Sasori held the katana lightly with one hand as he performed katas with the other. Suddenly, the metallic wheels began to whirl. Choom! A cloud of dust and sand was kicked into the air by the sheer force of Sasori's propulsion. Naruto paled. Sasori had been fast before, but now he was unparalleled. In the span of 2 seconds, Sasori had gotten behind Naruto. The fox boy quickly prepared to use Hiraishin no jutsu. Now demon vessel, try this. K's no Yeba. Wind began swirling around Sasori's katana. Wind blade. Without hesitation, he swung. The blade-shaped current of wind dug into Naruto's back, and the blood came forth in a thick spray of red. 4x. Boom 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 boom. Deidara gave the term, carpet bombing, a new meaning. Jiraiya was having a tough time navigating his way through the figurative minefield Deidara had set up. The female Akatsuki ninja was forming more and more clay explosives, throwing them down with an ever-increasing speed, and at an ever-increasing rate. Jiraiya snarled. He had to even the odds, and now. A smile adorned his face as he dodged another bird-shaped clay explosive. One of the main exports of the Wind Country is iron ore, and a majority of the country's ore is located near the many underground rivers. And since Sanagakure was built over a large underground river, he quickly performed a set of katas. Kinryuden no jutsu. The ground underneath him began to rumble. Metal element. Metal dragon blast. A metallic dragon's head erupted from the sandy ground, roaring at Deidara with an unearthly ferocity. The former stone ninja blinked. Well, that's just peachy, yeah. She leapt off of her clay eagle as the metal dragon head devoured it. With a thought, the eagle exploded, taking the metallic dragon with it. As she fell, she was quickly digging into a clay bag to create another form of transportation. Not so fast, thought Jiraiya with a smirk as he slammed his hands into the ground. Ninpo. Atsuen-sensui. Art of the Rolling Hills. Using his chakra, Jiraiya created vibrations in the ground, creating a rolling wave of sandy hills just as Deidara neared the ground. The moment Deidara created a clay hawk and enlarged it, a hill of sand threatened to engulf her. Without hesitation, she roared, Bakuha no Jutsu, explosion. A ball of chakra erupted from the mouth in the palm of her right hand, crashing into the wall of sand that threatened to crush her. The chakra ball exploded, creating a hole in the rolling hill. However, much to Deidara's surprise, Jiraiya was above the hole, his hand holding an orb of swirling blue chakra. If you haven't had enough yet, then my Rasengan will blow you away. 4x. Sasori wheeled around for another strike at Naruto. Speaking of Naruto, several cuts had been made on his back, arms, and legs by the former sand ninja's windblade. Thankfully, they were all being healed. Man, that windblade is getting annoying. I'm forced to heal your pathetic hide. How do you think I feel? Shut up. Where's the creativity? For shame. If you don't shut up, I'm going to shave your tails off and stick 'em in your mouth. Ah, that's better. You may now commence growling out of irritation. RRR. Oh, and heads up. Naruto looked up to see Sasori swinging his katana. The fox boy impulsively jumped up to avoid the blade. The former sand ninja smiled. Impressive. For all intents and purposes, he should be dead, but the chakra of the 9 tails is healing him, and the Kyuubi is even preventing his body from being cut apart to the point of limb removal. The symbiosis of their chakra is astounding. Fighting a demon vessel is truly a pleasure, but I must end this now. Now this ends. Uzumaki Naruto scowled as Sasori charged again. Crap, he's gonna try and knock me out now. I've got to get rid of those wheels. He quickly pulled out 2 shuriken, as well as something else. He quickly performed some hand seals. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 5 clones appeared beside Naruto. Sasori snorted. That won't help at all. 2 of the clones smirked. Hiraishin no Jutsu. The 2 clones disappeared in a flash of yellow. Naruto and his other clone both threw 1 shuriken each at Sasori, while 2 other clones just stood there. Akasun Sasori adeptly ducked under the shuriken. Worthless. K's no. Ha. The scorpion of the red sands tilted his head back to see the 2 clones grab the thrown shuriken, and then they threw them back, this time at the legs. Sasori, however, jumped, avoiding the shuriken yet again. I told you, it's worthless. The 2 clones that had done nothing grabbed the shuriken. As for Naruto and his first clone, they held string. String? Thought Sasori with a frown. Then, he paled as he glanced down at his feet, seeing string wrapped around the back of the wheels. He paled out of shock. String had been tied to both shuriken. The boy had thrown the shuriken to get the string wrapped around his wheels. That meant, Naruto and the 3 clones pulled both ends of the 2 lengths of string. Sasori yelped as both of his feet were brought upward into the air. His tremendous forward momentum sent him flying forward. Slam! And into Deidara, who had been sent flying by Jiraiya's Rasengan. Oh yeah, cheered Naruto. Score! The 2 Akatsuki ninja were silent. Jiraiya remained on guard, nevertheless. Quote. Then, both of them stood. Deidara muttered, it seems we've underestimated you, yeah. Sasori finished by saying, this means we have no choice but to use our combination attacks, prepare yourselves. 2 on 2. Double combo attack. 4x. Kage's Palace, Sanagakure, Wind Country. The full moon glistened down upon Sanagakure. The wind howled as it picked up the sand, turning the dark horizon into a dusty brown. The sky was empty of clouds, and of stars. Only the moon had decided to show up tonight. From the rooftop of the Kage's Palace, Tamari sighed. Her Jonin uniform, a set of purple robes that were tied around her body by a black sash, plus slip-on shoes and her sand hitai 8, ruffled in the blustery wind. Her eyes were staring up at the moon, which seemed so bright in such darkness. It reminded her of the events of the past week. 1 week ago, Akatsuki had kidnapped Gaara, and that was when she and Kankuro had been sent to notify their ally, the Leaf, of what had happened. They had managed to get far enough away to escape Akatsuki's notice, and they had also witnessed the raising of the steam barrier by one of the 8 members of Akatsuki. 4 days ago, they had arrived at Konoha, and they had assisted the Leaf in fending off their attackers, the Nukanen of Akatsuki and the Auto Nin, Sound Ninja, from the Hidden Sound Village. After the battle, they had returned to Sanagakure with 8 Konoha Nin. Yesterday evening, they had arrived at Sanagakure to find that Naruto had defeated the Akatsuki invaders, with help from Gaara, Sasuke, and Jiraiya. Not only that, but Orochimaru and Kabuto, nemeses of Konoha, had also been vanquished. Tamari sighed, and then she suddenly grimaced as a spike of pain washed over her injured stomach. She had been injured in the battle in Konoha, but it was mostly a flesh wound. A very painful one at that, bitterly thought Tamari. Still, she was happy. Akatsuki was gone, save for one, or so she had been told. Gaara was safe, and he would continue to serve the sand as their cage. You okay, sis? Tamari turned around to see Kankuro, wearing plain black pajamas. It was late at night, and he had actually decided to go to sleep. Tamari, meanwhile, had been unable to sleep, and thus, had seen no reason to remove her clothing. Yet, she quietly nodded. Yeah, just watching Gaara. Watching Gaara? Yes. On the roof of a small building adjacent to the Kage's palace, Gaara was sitting there. He was staring up into the sky, quietly letting sand swirl around him like a miniature whirlwind. Kankuro smirked as he ran a hand through his dark brown hair. Hey, Don't you mean, cage? Temari irritably whacked Kankuro on the left shoulder. This caused him to wince. Ow, that hurt. Then don't be a smart aleck. You know we can call him Gaara when no one else is around, retorted Temari. I know that. Kankuro irritably rubbed his left shoulder. It had been the target of a powerful water element ninjutsu in the battle for Konoha. Stupid girl. Can't even take a joke. The two siblings silently watched their younger brother Gaara stare into the sky, into the darkness, and into the moon. Temari quietly looked back up as she thought of the events of 4 days ago. 4x. Temari's flashback. 4 days ago. Outside Konohagakure, Fire Country. How much further, Temari? Yelled Kankuro from the base of a giant oak tree. His sister Temari was on the very top of the tree, scouting out the area ahead. No response. Temari? Still no response. Kankuro angrily roared, Temari, are you daydreaming up there? Tip. Temari quietly landed on the grass beside her younger brother. Kankuro, wearing his Jonin outfit, black uniform with a black head covering, as well as purple face paint, angrily demanded, why the heck didn't you respond? I saw Konoha, and? Temari raised her head, staring into Kankuro's black eyes with dark green irises full of uncertainty. And, it's under attack. A thunderbolt of shock ran through Kankuro. No way. What the heck? I know, prepare yourself, Kankuro. Temari tapped the giant fan rope to her back before leaping off into the branches. Kankuro grimaced. What rotten luck. Oh well, at least Karasu, Kuroari, and Sanshao will get a decent workout. Yes, the crow, the black ant, and the salamander would get a workout indeed. The two sand Jonin made it to the outer wall of Konohagakure in less than 3 minutes. Temari quickly yelled, split up. Right, with that said, the two split up. Temari quickly dashed away from her younger brother. Part of her regretted splitting up, but she knew that they worked better alone. Her wind-based abilities would screw up Kankuro's puppet no jutsu. In a matter of seconds, Temari found an enemy. A bald Nukanin wearing nothing but gray sweatpants and a brown headband was dealing with 3 chunin. She recognized them as Hyuga Hinata, Aburame Shino, and Inazuka Kiba. Oh, and there was a little dog named Akamaru. Kaiten. Kanryu Shiikawa. Fire Element. Fire Dragon Seeker. The Nukanin blew out 5 different strands of dragon-shaped fire from his mouth. 2 of the strands sought out Kiba and Akamaru. Ah, fire, hot, yelped Kiba as he and Akamaru both tried to dodge the fiery dragon strands. The ninja was unable to cast a jutsu. 2 other strands sought out Shino. The calm, even-headed Chunin quickly backstepped away from the 2 tongues of flame. When they came too close, he would raise his arms. Sticking to his forearms were shields made of destruction bugs that had been reinforced with chakra, the shields made for a fine defense. But that was all he could do. The last strand targeted Hinata. Since she only had 1 to deal with, she could effectively alternate between dodging and attacking. Unfortunately, the bald Nukanin was too good at evading her strikes and countering with lightning-quick punches and kicks. Even with her Byakugan bloodline limit, she couldn't track the Nukanin's counters. The Nukanin smirked. Come on, can't I have some fun? I'll give you fun. Ninpo. Sunasenpu. Sand whirlwind. The Nukanin whirled around to see a cyclone made of sand rushing toward him. The bald renegade yelped as he was picked and launched into a building by the whirlwind. Rough, barked Akamaru as he saw the source of the attack. Kiba did too. Well, look who's decided to show up. Temari smiled, bracing her fan beside her. Yo, need any help? 4x. Naruto's flashback. Yesterday morning. Outside Sanagakure, Wind Country. On the Obsidian Seal, the 5 members of Akatsuki sat silently, watching Deidara and Sasori fight the demon vessel and his sensei. It's been an impressive bout so far, commented Akira as he flipped a page in his Icha Icha Paradise book. Imagine how he'd react if he knew Jiraiya was the author. Yagami Hiroto wiped some of the sweat off of his head with one hand. The sun was now beating down upon them with its terrible, terrible heat. Indeed. But now that Deidara and Sasori are going to use their combo attacks, it's all over. That's why they always go on missions together, because their abilities complement each other so well. Kumorimaru snickered. There's no way the fox brat and his teacher will be able to win. Shu chuckled quietly. I wouldn't bet on that. They're master and apprentice, after all. It would not be surprising to see that they have combination attacks as well. Let's just watch, interrupted Itachi. The Akatsuki ninja resumed their task of keeping Gaara sealed. 4x. Sasori and Deidara stood silently as they stared at Naruto and Jiraiya. The fox boy wiped the sweat off his brow irritably. The sun was getting to him. Getting nervous? Of course not. It's just getting hot. Excuses, excuses. We're in the middle of the freaking desert. You call this sandy plain a desert? Surely you jest. I don't even want to know what deserts are like where you're from. A shame. I would certainly enjoy watching your skin melt. Naruto shook his head to ignore the demon fox's words. Gah. So, how much chakra did you pour into your Rasengan? Not nearly as much as I wanted to, commented the irritable pervert Sennin. I could only get 1/5 of the chakra I wanted into the ball before I had to attack. Otherwise, she would have dodged before the attack connected, and I would have wasted chakra. Naruto snorted. Pathetic. Pow. Like you're one to judge. Roared Jiraiya as Naruto painfully clutched his aching head, thanks to the Sannin's fist. As the two Akatsuki members watched the two rant at each other, Sasori glanced at Deidara. Is your Z2 clay ready? Deidara nodded as her right hand's mouth spewed out blue-colored clay. With the clenching of her fist, the mound of clay was transformed into a bowl shape. She performed a quick set of katas, enlarging the bowl of clay until it was big enough to comfortably house a human. The former sand ninja quietly jumped into the bowl before it closed over him. Deidara smirked. Now to show them combo number 1, yeah. With a thought, Deidara sent her ball of huge explosive clay toward Naruto and Jiraiya. Combination 1. Sneak attack. Both leaf ninjas sensed chakra heading in their direction. They turned to see a ball of chakra-reinforced clay heading in their direction. Oh! Naruto leapt high into the air, focusing chakra in his feet so he could get extra height. Jiraiya, on the other hand, performed a set of katas, yelling, Harijizo, Needle Guardian. His white hair suddenly increased in size, forming a protective barrier of spiky hair that surrounded his entire body. He crouched down to protect his face. Then, the ball of blue clay catapulted into the air, exploding right at the midway point between Naruto and Jiraiya. Kaboom! Naruto grimaced as the force of the explosion sent him further upward. Jiraiya grunted as a forceful shockwave pounded him downward, forming a small crater in the sand. Naruto grimaced as he looked down, and to his shock, the ball of clay was still in the air. However, it was now gray, and a few chunks of blue clay were stuck to it. It was also a good deal smaller. Wah! Suddenly, Sasori burst from within. Peek-a-boo! Without hesitation, his tail extended high into the air and wrapped around Naruto's body. Deidara grinned as she watched Sasori burst from the ball of clay. Heh, my Z2 clay is special, yeah. It only explodes on the outside, leaving behind a protective inner shell. It makes for good surprise attacks, yeah. She quickly dove into another bag of normal clay, preparing for the second combo attack. Meanwhile, have a nice fall. Naruto screamed as Sasori slung him downward towards Jiraiya, his tail acting like a slingshot. Jiraiya gazed upward to see Naruto falling towards him. With a thought, his hair returned to normal. He quickly raised his arms to catch his idiot apprentice. He then promptly fell onto his bottom when Naruto landed on him. You idiot, you should have caught me then, roared Naruto. Such splendid disharmony brings a tear to the eye. Shut up. What makes you think I'll listen to you? Tip. That was the sound of Sasori landing on the tip of his tail in the soft desert sand. Panels in his heels suddenly opened up, revealing steel rods attached to a wooden axle. Sasori grinned as the axles began spinning, causing the rods to spin at high speed like helicopter blades. They may not be like Tonfa, but they're just as good. His tail sprang backward, building up potential energy. Then, he sprang himself forward, aiming his feet for the heads of the two leaf ninjas. Ka-pow! Naruto and Jiraiya were both sent flying by the hit. The steel rods had slammed into their chins. Sasori smirked as he aimed his tail into the air. The tip of the tail opened up, revealing a small barrel. Now, to begin the second combo. Combination 2. Death Trap. Choom! 8 black orbs were launched from the barrel in his tail. Each orb landed 5 yards away from them, forming a circle with a 10-yard diameter around the two-leaf ninja. Naruto frowned. Smoke bombs. Nothing so passive, said Sasori, who was at least 15 feet away from the nearest orb. Suddenly, dark green gas was expelled from the 8 orbs, forming a thick cloud that loomed dangerously close to the 2 ninjas. Those are poison bombs, and the corrosive gas they have just released will melt away at your skin should you touch it. This new piece of information was disquieting to the two-leaf ninja. Jiraiya and Naruto stood back to back, trying to stay as far away from the toxic cloud as they could. Naruto muttered, "Crap, and that's not all." Sasori's words filtered in through the gas, possessing a scarily ghostly quality. "Look above you." Both leaf ninja did. High in the sky, standing atop another claybird, this one a large falcon, was Deidara, and she held arrow-shaped pieces of explosive clay. Without any hint of qualm, she threw them downward at the master and apprentice. Naruto grimaced. "Crap, we either die from the arrows made of explosive clay, or we die from the cloud of toxic gas." You got a plan?" "No, just wondering whether or not I'd prefer you blown to bits, or melted into a puddle of goo." You're no help. Glad to be of service." Slap. Naruto tilted his head to see that the pervert Sennin had slapped his hands together, obviously preparing a ninjutsu spell. A smirk adorned his lips. HMPH, if they think we can be so easily done in, they're mistaken. Sweden. Kaizuahado. His cheeks suddenly bulged as he aimed his mouth upwards. Water element. Ocean surge. A torrent of blue water erupted from his mouth, enveloping the explosive arrows. Deidara barely managed to dodge the fountain, veering her clay falcon away. "Well, that's not good, yeah?" The water then fell downward, consuming the toxic gas cloud and washing it away. Sasori frowned as the water rushed toward him. "Clever." He then pointed his tail straight up. The clay falcon soared by him, grabbing his tail. The former sand ninja was whisked into the air by Deidara, avoiding the surge of water wrought on them by the legendary leaf. He glanced upward at Deidara and said, "We've used the first 2 combination attacks. They have failed." As he spoke, his metal wheels once again appeared beneath his feet. "I get what you're saying. We have to use our last one, yeah," uttered Deidara as she thrust both hands into her largest bag of clay. The bag was labeled X. Once she had devoured all of the clay within the bag, she hopped off the clay falcon. Simultaneously, the falcon released Sasori. His wheels began spinning in midair as Deidara landed on his shoulders. Seconds later, his wheels made contact with the last remnants of the surging water, skiing across the surface with ease. When the water receded, leaving nothing but muddy sand, his speed still remained constant. Now, final combination. Doomsday. Deidara then aimed her palms toward the ground. The mouths in them spat out the clay she had consumed, forming lines on the ground. Jiraiya wiped his mouth clean of water as he watched Sasori skate around in the mud, letting Deidara place clay on the ground. HMPH, they think they can simply use combination attacks whenever they please. Nah, not when we have our own. Naruto smirked as he gazed at the clay falcon, which was rushing toward them. "Let's take care of that oversized pigeon first." "Agreed," replied Jiraiya as he quickly performed a set of katas. Naruto did so as well. Jiraiya yelled, "Doden." Naruto yelled, "Kaden." Then, simultaneously, they roared, "Shaodu no Jutsu." Earth and fire element, burning earth. Jiraiya expelled a wave of hardy earth from his mouth and into the air. Naruto spewed out a stream of red fire that surrounded Jiraiya's soil, turning it into a fearsome weapon. The burning earth and the clay falcon collided, creating a massive explosion. Naruto eagerly pumped his fist. "Booyah!" A male voice interrupted the boy's joy. Don't be too quick to celebrate, demon vessel." The 2 leaf ninjas turned around to see Sasori standing 15 yards away. Atop his shoulders was Deidara, who had an odd smile on her face. Naruto frowned. "What's with them? Look at the ground, dunce." Naruto did, and paled. "Pervert Sennin." "I see it," muttered Jiraiya. All around them were lines of explosive clay, situated in an intricate geometric pattern. In a way, it resembled a seal. Deidara smiled as she performed a set of katas. "Now, let me show you the true power of my explosive clay." Then, she formed the sign of the ram, O Hitsuji. Ninpo. Hanyubakuden. The large clay pattern started glowing red. Art of the Earth Bomb. Then, the clay lines exploded. Kaboom! The explosion created a massive column of sand and fire that roared upward, taking Naruto and Jiraiya with it. The shockwave of the explosion shook the land for miles around. Clouds were blown away by the force of the explosion. Akira's teeth chattered from the vibrations. Aye, impressive. Indeed, muttered Hiroto. Gaara was silent as his eyes tried their best to follow the explosion. Quote. Oddly enough, he was not concerned. He knew how hardy Naruto was. As for Jiraiya, well, he was a legendary leaf. Sasori smirked as Deidara hopped off of his shoulders. I certainly hope that the vessel for the 9 tails isn't that fragile. Mantaro will have our heads if the boy turns out dead. Don't worry, the boy's alive, yeah. I can still sense his chakra, yeah. Deidara smirked as she stared down at the mouths embedded in her palms. Such wonderful tools. Long ago, using forbidden scrolls, she had learned a forbidden kinjutsu technique that had demonic origins. It led to the creation of the mouths in her hands, which were connected directly to her inner coil system, and thus had she developed her fighting style, using clay. Such useful tools indeed, yeah. Doten. Sasori and Deidara paled. That was the voice of the old Sanin. Kinton. Both Akatsuki ninjas looked up. The fire had dissipated, and the sand kicked up by the earth bomb was falling down, and falling from high in the air was the fox boy and his sensei. Granted, their clothes were covered with burn marks, and they were bleeding in several places. They also possessed burn wounds, but despite that, they were attacking. Simultaneously, they roared, Kidoteku. A large mass of metal erupted from the desert, sailing into the air. It shifted and transformed, eventually turning into the shape of an armored fist. Jiraiya spat out more earth from his mouth, which coagulated upon the knuckles of the metallic fist. Both leaf ninjas roared, earth and metal element, earth and iron fist. The fist began spinning as it roared downward towards Sasori and Deidara. The former sand ninja impulsively sped away on his wheels. Deidara hurriedly tried to form another bird from her clay. Crash. Too late. The former stone ninja yelped as the fist crashed into the ground in front of her. She was sent sailing through the air before landing on the soft mud of the desert floor. Seconds later, she was submerged by a torrent of sand. Sasori scowled as he glanced upward. Accursed fools. Panels in his knees opened.